When Deyvon heard the scream, he didn't hesitate. He grabbed his daughter, lunged across the parking lot, and took a bullet for a woman he didn't even know. Sky had dropped her stuffed elephant, and in the split second Deyvon bent to pick it up, chaos ripped through the quiet Saturday morning. A masked man was shouting by the entrance of the store, waving a gun. Nobody moved at first, but Moyle, on her phone, didn't see him in time. She stepped out of her black SUV, smiling at a text from her assistant. That's when the gunman turned, panicked, and raised his arm toward her. There were no second chances in that moment. No warning, just instinct. Deyvon didn't think about himself. He pushed Sky down behind a parked car, leapt forward, arms stretched, heart pounding, and threw his body between the man and the woman he'd never met. The shot rang out. One. Just one. People screamed. Cars honked. Someone shouted for help. Moyle stood frozen, shaking, as Deyvon collapsed in front of her. He didn't even know her name. A single dad with nothing to prove. Just rewrote two families' futures with a single act of courage. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. Would you risk your life for someone you've never met? Not for fame. Not for a thank you. Just because it was right. Because this story isn't just about the bullet. It's about what came after. The recovery. The romance no one saw coming. The truth that tore open old scars. And the quiet kind of love that builds when no one's watching. So stay with me, because by the time this ends, you might just start believing in second chances again. Hey, I'm Mr. Bryan. If this is your first time here, welcome to the space where real stories live. And if you've been here before, thank you. Seriously, I'm glad you came back. This is Mr. Bryan Inspires, where every story we tell is about real life. Not the perfect filtered version, but the kind that hurts, heals, teaches, and sometimes leaves you speechless. Today's story, it's about a man who thought he'd lost everything except his daughter, a woman born into wealth but drowning in silence, and a moment, 1 second, that changed everything. But before we walk this road together, can I ask you a few quick favors? First, smash that like button. It's not just a button. It tells YouTube that this story is worth showing to someone else who might need it today. Second, drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I really do read them, and it helps me feel like we're building something together. And third, if you've ever believed in love, in healing, or in doing the right thing even when no one's watching, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. We've got more stories coming, and I promise they won't waste your time. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about Deyvon, and the day everything changed. The morning had started like any other Saturday for Deyvon, which in his life meant a mix of rushing, improvising, and trying to keep his 7-year-old daughter Sky entertained while also keeping the bills paid. The sun was barely up over the small town outside Atlanta, warming the quiet streets and giving the day that calm feeling before people started filling the sidewalks and parking lots. Sky had insisted they go early because the grocery store always put out fresh muffins around 8. She'd been talking about blueberry ones all week, and even though money was tight, Deyvon promised she could pick one if she ate breakfast first. That was the deal they had. Little joys, balanced with responsibility. They walked into the store holding hands, Sky swinging their arms left and right. She wore pink sneakers that lit up when she skipped, which she did constantly. That morning, she seemed especially bright, humming a tune only she understood. "Daddy, can I get the sparkly cereal?" she asked, pointing toward the colorful aisle. "We'll see," he said with a smile, the dad version of probably not, but he didn't want to see her face fall too soon. They started through produce, and he gave her the very important job of choosing apples, which she took extremely seriously. While she leaned over to inspect them one by one, he reached for a bag of oranges and glanced around the store. Just a habit. Being a single parent meant always scanning, always tracking, always staying aware. That's when he first saw her. Moyle stood in front of the coffee section wearing a long brown coat and holding a basket loosely in her hand. She didn't look rushed, but she didn't look relaxed either. There was a heaviness in her expression, like someone carrying too much and trying to hide it. She was staring at 2 brands of coffee, comparing them, but her eyes weren't really on the boxes. She was somewhere else entirely. Her hair was braided neatly back, and her posture was elegant, straight but tired. She carried the weight of someone important, someone expected to show strength at all times. But in that grocery store, for a fleeting moment, she just looked human, a woman who needed a break from whatever life demanded of her. Deyvon didn't know who she was. He didn't know that she was the daughter of one of the most powerful CEOs in the region. He didn't know she'd flown into town to escape pressure that had been mounting for months, deadlines, board meetings, people pulling at her from every angle. He didn't know she'd left Atlanta the evening before just to breathe, just to feel like her life belonged to her again. To him, in that second, she was just a stranger deciding between dark roast and medium roast. Sky tugged on his arm. "Daddy, she looks sad." He blinked out of the moment and knelt to her. "Sometimes grown-ups get tired, baby, that's all." Sky nodded like she understood everything in the world. Then she looked back at the woman. "She's pretty." "She is," he said softly, surprised that the words came out. But he looked away quickly. He didn't have time or space in his world to get distracted by anyone, especially not someone who looked like she belonged in a completely different universe. When they finished picking produce, Sky spotted her favorite stuffed animal on a shelf. She gasped dramatically and sprinted toward it, giggling. Deyvon followed, trying not to laugh. She grabbed it, hugged it tight, and declared, "This one needs a home." "We're not adopting more stuffed animals," he said playfully, taking it from her hands. "But Daddy, look at her eyes." He raised a brow. "It's a frog." "A princess frog," he chuckled. "We'll see." It was the same answer as always, and Sky beamed, because "we'll see" meant hope. They continued toward the dairy section, weaving through early shoppers. The store wasn't crowded yet, just a few locals picking up groceries before the day rushed them away. That small Saturday calm felt normal, comfortable, safe. But that peace didn't last. At the front of the store, a loud bang shook the automatic doors. Shoppers turned their heads sharply. A man stumbled inside, his face covered by a makeshift mask, hands shaking. A gun glinted in his right hand. People froze. Time paused in the most terrifying way. Sky gripped her father's leg. "Daddy." "It's okay," he whispered, pulling her closer. But it wasn't okay. The gunman shouted something no one understood. His voice cracked, desperate, panicked. He waved the weapon wildly, backing up near the entrance. People crouched behind carts. A clerk ducked behind the counter. A baby began crying in aisle 6. Moyle was near the front when it happened. She took one instinctive step back, basket slipping slightly from her hand. Her heart slammed so hard she felt it in her throat. She turned toward the exit, but that only made the man jerk the gun upward. "Don't move," he yelled. She raised her hands slowly. Okay. Her voice trembled, something she never allowed in corporate boardrooms. But life and death moments don't care who you are. She backed away carefully, one small step at a time, eyes locked on the man, breath shallow. And in her fear, she didn't notice she was walking directly into the open space of the aisle, exactly where the gunman pointed next, exactly where Deyvon and Sky had stepped out of produce seconds earlier. "Daddy," Sky whispered, shaking now. He didn't think. He couldn't. Instinct took over, the kind of instinct that single parents develop without realizing it. Protect first. Ask questions later. He pushed Sky gently behind a stack of displays. She whimpered. "Daddy, don't go. Stay down." His voice was calm but firm, the kind of voice she knew meant listen to me right now. He stepped out into the open aisle without hesitation. Moyle turned just as the masked man shouted again. For a moment, a brief second where time stretched thin, her eyes met Deyvon's. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know why he was stepping forward. She didn't know why he was putting himself between her and the gun. But she saw something in his eyes, something steady, something brave. The gunman's hands shook harder. He fired. One shot. Just one. The impact hit Deyvon before Moyle even understood what was happening. He stumbled, catching himself on a shelf, then collapsed onto the floor. Sky screamed from behind the display. People hit the ground. Carts toppled over. The gunman ran, disappearing through the automatic doors he'd burst through minutes before. Moyle stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. She dropped her basket. Sir, she cried, rushing to him. Her knees hit the tile. Her hands trembled as she reached for him but pulled back, terrified of making anything worse. Sky crawled out from hiding, tears streaming down her face. Daddy. Moyle caught her. "Baby, wait." But Sky shook free, falling beside her father, clutching his arm. "Daddy, wake up, please." She sobbed. Deyvon's eyes fluttered weakly. His breathing was shallow. But he was alive. Barely. His gaze shifted between Sky and Moyle, confused yet determined. Even in pain, even fading, he lifted one hand toward his daughter. "I'm here," he whispered. His voice was faint, soft, but it was enough to make Sky cry even harder. Moyle pressed her shaking hand against his shoulder. "Stay with us, please." Someone shouted, "Call 911." Another yelled, "I already did." The world around them spun, alarms, footsteps, crying, panic. But in the center of all the noise, there was a strange quietness, the kind that wraps around a moment too heavy, too human to ignore. A stranger had taken a bullet for her. A father had risked everything for people he didn't even know. If you're watching this right now, please hit that subscribe button, because what happens next is something no one in that grocery store could have predicted. And if your heart's already racing, drop a comment and let me know you're still here. The screaming didn't stop. It echoed through the grocery store as people rushed away from the front entrance, pushing carts aside, covering their heads, grabbing their children. A few brave shoppers inched forward, trying to help but unsure how close they should get. The man with the mask had already disappeared through the doors, but his presence lingered through the ringing panic he left behind. Moyle knelt beside Deyvon, hands trembling so violently she could hardly keep them still. She kept blinking as if trying to wake up from a nightmare. But the sight in front of her didn't change. The blood on the floor didn't disappear. The weight of the moment didn't lighten. Sky was on the ground next to her father, clutching his shirt, tears dripping onto his arm. "Daddy, don't go, don't go," she whispered repeatedly, voice breaking every time she said it. Deyvon tried to answer, but his lips barely moved. His breathing was shallow, uneven. His hand twitched as if reaching out for her, but he didn't have the strength. "Stay with us," Moyle whispered. "Please, stay with us." Her voice cracked. Normally, Moyle kept a straight face even under pressure. Board meetings, negotiations, corporate tension. She handled all of it with a calm, contained expression her father demanded she perfect. But this wasn't a conference room. This wasn't a controlled environment. This was a stranger bleeding in her arms, a little girl crying for her father, and a moment she knew would never leave her memory. Someone shouted from across the aisle, "EMS is on the way, they said 3 minutes." But 3 minutes felt like a lifetime. Moyle placed her hand gently on Deyvon's shoulder, trying not to press too hard. His shirt was warm but damp from the blood. She felt fear rise in her chest so fast it made her dizzy. "Why would you do that?" she whispered, voice cracking again. "Why would you risk everything? For me?" His eyes opened halfway, cloudy, unfocused, yet they still held something strong in them, something that didn't match the weakness in his body. "For my daughter," he whispered, barely audible. Then, after a pause, "No one deserves to die alone." The words hit Moyle harder than the gunshot had. She swallowed a sob and touched his hand gently. "You're not alone. I promise." Sky leaned close, tears still streaming. "Daddy, I'm here. Don't be scared." Even in pain, even slipping in and out of consciousness, Deyvon tried to smile for her. The sirens grew closer, distant at first, then louder, sharper, slicing through the air like a lifeline. Lights flashed outside the store windows, red and blue reflecting on the tile floor. Seconds later, paramedics rushed through the doors with equipment in hand. "Back up, please. Give us space," one of them yelled as they approached. Moyle moved aside but stayed close enough for Deyvon to see her if he opened his eyes. Sky refused to let go of his hand until a paramedic gently assured her, "We're going to take care of him, sweetheart." She nodded, wiping her face with her sleeve, but her hand reached for his once more before she finally stepped back. The scene shifted into organized chaos, gloves snapping, voices calling out vitals, equipment clattering. One paramedic pressed gauze to the bullet wound. Another started checking his airway. The third radioed the hospital with rapid-fire instructions. Male, mid-30s, gunshot wound to the upper left torso, low blood pressure, responsive but fading. Another paramedic leaned toward Moyle. Did he say anything? Anything that might help? Her lips parted, but her voice took a moment to come out. "He said no one deserves to die alone, and he did it protecting me." The paramedic softened slightly. "We'll do everything we can." They lifted Deyvon onto a stretcher. His hand dangled off the side for a moment until Sky rushed forward and grabbed it. "Daddy, I'm coming too." The paramedic looked at Moyle. "Are you family?" Moyle froze. She wasn't. She was a stranger. a stranger who had somehow become tied to this moment in the most unexpected way. Sky spoke before she could answer. She helped us. Please let her come. The paramedic nodded. Fine. But stay close. Moyle reached for Sky's hand, squeezing it gently. I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere. They followed the stretcher through the automatic doors and into the blinding daylight. The cold air hit Moyle's skin like a shock. The ambulance doors opened, and the paramedics pushed the stretcher inside. Deyvon's breathing was even weaker now, barely noticeable under the oxygen mask. Let's go, one paramedic shouted. We're losing time. Moyle lifted Sky into the back of the ambulance, then climbed in after her. She had no idea what she was doing, no idea why she felt compelled to stay, only that she couldn't leave this man or his daughter behind. The doors slammed shut. The sirens wailed again, and the ambulance sped away. The interior shook with every bump in the road. Sky clung to her father's arm, whispering, I'm right here, Daddy. Don't worry. Please don't worry. Moyle sat beside her, one hand on Sky's back, the other gripping the edge of the seat so tightly her knuckles turned white. She watched the paramedics work, checking vitals, applying pressure, adjusting wires. BP still dropping, one said. Push another line, another replied, voice tense. Sky looked up at Moyle with big, frightened eyes. Is he gonna die? Moyle swallowed hard. Everything in her stomach twisted. She couldn't lie to a child, but she couldn't tell her the truth either. We're going to let the doctors do their very best, she said gently. And we're going to be strong together, okay? Sky sniffed and nodded, but her eyes never left her father's face. Moyle had never felt so helpless. She'd faced hostile boards, competitive executives, reporters who twisted every word she said, but nothing compared to sitting in this ambulance, praying for a man she'd never known until 30 minutes ago. She looked at him, pale, breathing shallowly, fighting for every second. Something inside her shifted. This wasn't just a stranger anymore. This was someone who made a sacrifice she couldn't understand. Someone who didn't hesitate to save her. Someone whose life now hung in the balance because of her presence in that grocery store. The guilt settled deep, heavy. She whispered under her breath, Please, please don't die. The ambulance screeched to a stop outside the emergency entrance. The back doors flew open, and the paramedics rushed the stretcher out. Gunshot victim, immediate trauma room. One called out. Moyle grabbed Sky's hand. Stay with me, she whispered, but the little girl was already crying again. They ran after the stretcher as far as they could, until a nurse stood in front of them and blocked the hall. I'm sorry, you can't go in there. Sky panicked. But that's my daddy. I have to go with him. The nurse crouched to her level. Sweetheart, the doctors need space to help him. I promise they'll take good care of him. Sky shook her head fiercely. No, I want to be with him. Moyle knelt beside her and pulled her into her arms. Come here, she whispered. We're going to stay close. They won't let him be alone. I'm right here with you. Sky buried her face into Moyle's coat, trembling. The nurse stood and turned to Moyle. Are you family? Before Moyle could answer, the little girl lifted her head and said in a shaking voice, She stayed with us. She came in the ambulance. Please let her stay. Moyle placed a hand on Sky's back. I'll stay with her, she said quietly. The nurse nodded and pointed toward the waiting room. You can wait there until we have updates. I'll make sure someone comes out as soon as they know something. Moyle led Sky into the waiting area. The chairs were cold and the fluorescent lights above buzzed softly. A TV in the corner played muted news coverage, but no one seemed to notice. Sky sat beside her, clutching the stuffed frog she'd insisted on bringing. She kept tapping its head against her knee, not playfully, but nervously. Her little chest rose and fell too fast. Do you want some water? Moyle asked softly. Sky shook her head. Do you want to talk? Another shake. Moyle didn't push. Instead, she sat quietly, letting the silence settle because she knew children didn't always answer with words. Sometimes silence was their way of holding on. A few minutes passed before Sky whispered, He was smiling today. Before it happened, Moyle looked at her gently. What was he smiling about? We were gonna get muffins, Sky said softly. He said maybe we could share one if it wasn't too sweet. Moyle's throat tightened. There was so much love in the way the child spoke of her father, the small memories that made up their life together. She looked up at the clock. Only 8 minutes had passed. It felt like hours. After making sure Sky was still right beside her, Moyle reached for her phone. Her hands shook again. She inhaled deeply before dialing her father, a man who never appreciated unexpected calls, especially on weekends. He answered on the second ring. "Moyle, where are you? You were supposed to review those documents." "Dad," she cut in sharply. He paused. "What's wrong?" Her voice faltered. "Someone was shot." "What? Are you hurt?" "No. But—" She swallowed. "Someone saved me. A man, a father. He took the bullet meant for me." Her father's tone shifted instantly, from stern to alarmed. "Where are you?" "At the hospital. They won't let us in. He's in critical condition." "What do you mean, saved you?" "Explain, Moyle." She quickly described the grocery store, the masked man, the gun, the moment Deyvon stepped in front of her. With every detail she shared, her father grew quieter. "Stay there," he finally said. "I'm sending security in a car to bring you home. I don't want you getting involved." "I'm not leaving," she said firmly. "Moyle, I said I'm not leaving." Her father breathed out in frustration. "This isn't your responsibility." She looked down at Sky, shoulders shaking, eyes red, trying to stay brave. "Yes," Moyle whispered into the phone, her voice steady. "It is." She hung up before he could argue again. Sky finally spoke again, voice soft. "We live in a little house. Daddy fixes things. The roof leaks sometimes. He says we're gonna fix it when he saves enough." Moyle turned to her gently. "Is it just you and him?" Sky nodded. "It's been just us for a long time." Moyle felt something ache inside her chest, not just sadness, but admiration. This man wasn't wealthy, wasn't powerful, wasn't protected by security teams or corporate reputations. He was just a father trying his best, and he had still protected her. Sky continued. "He always says we don't need a lot, just love, and muffins." She sniffed, trying to smile but failing halfway through. Moyle squeezed her hand. "I think he sounds like a good man." Sky nodded again. "The best." More minutes passed. The waiting room filled with people, nurses moving quickly, doctors walking past with clipboards, other families waiting for news. Did they know how terrifying these hallways were? Did they know how much a single minute stretched in a hospital? Moyle kept Sky close, kept her hand on her back so the child wouldn't feel alone. After what felt like an eternity but was only about 25 minutes, a doctor approached them. Sky jumped to her feet. "Is my daddy okay?" she asked, voice trembling. The doctor knelt to her level. "Your dad is very brave. We're working on him right now." Sky grabbed the frog tighter. The doctor stood and looked at Moyle. "We've stabilized him for now, but the situation is still critical." Moyle nodded slowly. "Can we see him?" "Not yet. He's in surgery." Sky's eyes widened. "Is he gonna wake up?" The doctor offered a gentle but honest response. "That's what we're fighting for." The little girl broke into tears again. Moyle knelt to pull her into her arms. Hey, you're not alone. I'm right here." Sky cried into her coat, and Moyle held her tighter, feeling her own tears burn behind her eyes. Her phone buzzed again, her father calling. She didn't answer. Another buzz, her assistant. Another, security. But Moyle didn't move. This wasn't a business meeting she could walk away from. Sky whispered, "Please don't leave me." Moyle looked down at her and brushed a braid away from her forehead. "I'm not leaving," she said quietly. "I'm staying right here." For the first time since the shooting, Sky's shoulders loosened slightly. Someone in the waiting room said softly, "She saved that child." But Moyle didn't feel like a savior. She felt responsible, connected, tied to a stranger's fate in a way she couldn't explain. If you're watching right now, take a moment to breathe. And if you've ever had a day that changed everything without warning, drop a comment and tell me how you stayed strong. And please, don't forget to like and subscribe so more people can find stories like this when they need them most. The hallway outside the surgery wing was colder than the waiting room, and the silence there carried a different weight. Not chaotic like before, just heavy. Anticipation mixed with fear in the air like a thick fog no one could escape. A nurse guided Moyle and Sky to a quieter section with cushioned chairs and a small table scattered with magazines no one ever touched. The nurse spoke gently. "A room will open up for you soon. The doctors will update you when they can." Then she stepped away, leaving the two of them alone again. Sky had stopped crying for the moment, but she looked exhausted. eyes swollen, hair slightly frizzy from running fingers through it. She leaned into Moyle's side, gripping her arm with the kind of trust most children reserve only for people they love. It startled Moyle a little, how quickly Skye had clung to her, how naturally she slipped into a protective role she didn't even know she was capable of offering. After several minutes, a nurse approached. "He's out of surgery, still unconscious, but you may sit with him." Skye jumped to her feet before Moyle could react. "Take us, please." The nurse nodded and led them down a long corridor. Their footsteps echoed in a steady rhythm, and with each one Moyle's stomach tightened. She had seen many intimidating rooms, executive offices, courtrooms, boardrooms, but none of them made her heart pound like the idea of walking into a hospital room where a man lay unconscious because of her presence in a grocery store. When they reached the door, the nurse opened it gently. "Take your time," she said softly, and then she left. It took Moyle 3 whole seconds before she could force herself to step inside. The beeping of machines filled the air, steady and unnervingly calm compared to the chaos earlier. The room smelled of antiseptic and faint traces of metal. Skye rushed over and stood near the bed, eyes wide as she took in the tubes, monitors, and wires. "Daddy," she whispered. Deyvon lay still, face pale, chest rising slowly under the blanket. His left arm had an 4 hooked in. His right hand rested on the bed, palm open, as if waiting for someone to take it. Skye reached for it immediately. Moyle stepped closer, but kept her movements gentle. It felt almost wrong to intrude, like she was stepping into a chapter of someone's life she wasn't supposed to read yet. Skye whispered, "Daddy, I'm here. I'm right here." There was no response, but his chest continued to rise and fall, steady but faint. Moyle pulled a chair close to the bed. She sat, exhaling slowly, feeling the weight settle on her shoulders. She watched him for a long moment, and a single overwhelming question kept echoing in her mind. Why me? Why would he do that for me? He didn't know her. He didn't know her life. He didn't know anything about her world, the world she'd been born into but spent years trying to escape from. As she stared at his face, that question pressed harder against her heart, demanding reflection. The image of her father flashed into her mind. Stern eyes, crisp suits, disappointed sighs. She could almost hear his voice. "You were raised for responsibility, not excuses. You don't get to show weakness. You are my daughter, and that means you carry the weight of this family." Growing up the daughter of a powerful CEO meant she never truly got to enjoy childhood. She learned early how to smile politely through exhaustion, how to adjust her tone to sound confident even when her stomach twisted with anxiety, how to carry herself in rooms full of adults who decided her life for her. Her father never asked if she was overwhelmed. He only asked whether she had finished the task. Being the child of a wealthy family wasn't as glamorous as people believed. It came with expectations so heavy they often smothered joy. And now, here she was, sitting beside a man who'd acted with more humanity in 1 second than some executives had shown her in years. No calculations, no negotiations, no hesitation. He simply saved her. She felt the sting of tears building behind her eyes. Maybe she was tired of performing, tired of being strong, tired of being someone she wasn't allowed to escape. She whispered, "You didn't know me, but you protected me anyway. Why?" Her voice cracked at the end. Skye looked up at her. "Because he's good," the girl said simply. Moyle forced a smile. "Yes, he is." After nearly 15 minutes of sitting quietly, Skye laid her head on the side of the bed near her father's arm. She murmured little things, stories about her frog, about school, about muffins, about how Daddy promised they'd go to the park soon. Her voice eventually softened into a quiet hum. That's when it happened. A slight movement. Barely noticeable, but Moyle saw it. Deyvon's fingers twitched, just enough to make the sheet shift. She stood instantly. "Skye," she whispered, "look." The child lifted her head as his eyelids fluttered. His breathing grew uneven, a sign that consciousness was struggling its way back. He opened his eyes halfway. "Daddy," Skye cried, grabbing his hand. He turned his head weakly toward her. A soft groan escaped him, but he managed a faint smile. Then his gaze drifted to Moyle. She swallowed, leaning forward. "You're okay. You're safe. You're in the hospital." His lips parted. She leaned closer. He whispered something, faint, broken, but clear enough for her to understand. "You shouldn't be alone." A shiver ran through her. His eyes closed again, the effort of that one sentence draining him. Sky touched his cheek. "Rest, Daddy." Moyle stepped back, stunned. Why would a stranger care whether she was alone? Why did he risk everything? Those words hit deeper than she expected, stirring something raw and unguarded inside her. It wasn't romantic, not yet, but it was human, deeply human, a shared vulnerability between two people who shouldn't have crossed paths in the first place. A doctor stepped into the room quietly, clipboard in hand. He nodded at Moyle and looked at Sky softly before speaking. "He's stable for now." "That's a good sign." Sky smiled weakly. "But we're not out of danger yet." His body took a hard hit. "We'll keep monitoring him closely." Moyle nodded. "Can we stay?" "You can sit with him, yes. But the child will need rest soon." Sky clung to Moyle's arm instantly. "I'm not going home," she whispered. The doctor gave Moyle a questioning look. Moyle spoke softly. "I'll take her. I'll make sure she's safe." The doctor nodded. "All right. For now, stay with him a little longer, then bring her somewhere to rest." He stepped out, leaving them in the dimly lit room. Sky leaned against the bed again, eyes half closed. She had been strong all day, but even the strongest children eventually reach the limit of what they can handle. Moyle watched the little girl and felt something shift deep inside her. She had protected companies, investments, brands, but never a child. And now this child clung to her like she was the only steady thing in the world. She looked at Deyvon again, his stillness, his bravery, his sacrifice. "I won't leave her," she whispered. "I promise." A nurse eventually guided them toward the exit and told them they needed rest. Moyle carried Sky to her car, the girl half asleep on her shoulder. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky a soft orange. "Do you know your address?" Moyle asked gently as she buckled Sky into the back seat. Sky nodded sleepily and recited the street name. It wasn't far, a modest neighborhood with small one-story homes, each unique in its own way. Some had peeling paint. Some had newly planted flowers. Some had kids' toys scattered across the lawn. It felt warm, real, lived in. Moyle pulled into the driveway of a small house with a slightly crooked mailbox. Sky pointed toward it. "That's us." Moyle parked and stepped out, then opened the back door to help her out of the car. The house looked peaceful, but something about it broke her heart, not because it was small, but because it held a story she wasn't part of yet. Sky led her to the door. Moyle hesitated. "Do you have a key?" Sky reached into her little backpack. "Daddy lets me keep it so I don't lose it." She unlocked the door with steady hands. Inside, the house was tidy but clearly lived in. Drawings on the fridge, a mismatched couch, tools neatly stored in a corner, a few books stacked beside a lamp. Sky walked inside slowly. Moyle followed. "Are you hungry?" she asked softly. Sky shook her head. "Just tired. Do you want to sleep in your room?" Sky nodded. Moyle walked her down the hall and opened the door. The room was simple. Posters of planets on the wall, a tiny bookshelf, a bed covered in a comforter with stars on it. Sky climbed in and curled under the blanket. Moyle turned off the light. Just as she reached the door, Sky whispered, "Don't leave." Moyle paused. "I'm right outside," she said. "I promise." Sky closed her eyes finally, exhaustion claiming her. Moyle walked into the living room and sat on the couch, staring at the walls, the photos, the signs of a life built with love and struggle. A stranger saved her life. Now she was sitting in his home, protecting the most precious person in his world. The weight of that connection settled deeply in her heart. Before we continue, I want to hear from you in the comments. Would you risk everything for a stranger, the way Deyvon did? And if this story is already gripping your heart, please like and subscribe so more people can hear stories that remind us what courage really looks like. Morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of Deyvon's small living room, casting soft lines across the worn carpet. Moyle had barely slept on the couch, waking up repeatedly to check whether Sky needed anything. The little girl had slept through the night only because exhaustion had overtaken fear, but even in sleep, she clutched her stuffed frog tightly. Around 6:40 a.m., Sky padded quietly into the living room. She stood by the couch, one foot tucked behind the other, blinking sleep from her eyes. "Moyle?" she whispered. Moyle sat up instantly, brushing hair from her face. "Hey, sweetheart, you okay?" Sky nodded but looked worried. "Can we go see Daddy now?" Her voice was small, too small. The kind of voice kids use when they're trying to be brave but the world feels too big. "We will," Moyle said. "But first, let's get you ready for school." Sky's brows furrowed. "School?" "Yes," Moyle replied softly. "Your dad would want you to go. He'd want you to stay strong, remember?" Sky hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Moyle stood and stretched her back. She wasn't used to staying overnight in a house this small, but something about it felt grounding. Real, peaceful, a home where love made up for lack of space. Moyle opened the fridge and blinked at its contents. Half a carton of milk, 3 apples, eggs, and a leftover container of spaghetti. It wasn't much, but it reflected a man doing his best with what he had. "Do you like eggs?" Moyle asked. Sky brightened. "Scrambled. Perfect." Chef Moyle reporting for duty. She cracked the eggs into a small bowl. Most of her life involved catered lunches, corporate buffets, or grabbing overpriced salads during meetings. Cooking wasn't something she did often, but surprisingly, it felt good, normal, human. As the eggs sizzled on the stove, Sky sat at the small dining table, swinging her legs lightly. "Do you cook for your daddy?" Moyle asked. "Sometimes," Sky said proudly. "We make pancakes on Saturdays. Daddy lets me stir." "That sounds fun." "It is. He says pancakes taste better when you make them with someone you love." Moyle paused, the spatula hovering in her hand. This man, this stranger, was built from tenderness. How could someone with so little still give so much? She served breakfast, sat with Sky, and they ate quietly. Halfway through, Sky looked up. "Thank you for staying." Moyle felt her chest warm. "You don't have to thank me. I'm here because I want to be." Sky smiled, a small, fragile smile that carried hope in it. That smile would stay with Moyle for the rest of the day. After breakfast, Moyle brushed Sky's hair, tied it into 2 neat puffs, and helped her pack her backpack. "Do I tell my teacher what happened?" Sky asked quietly. "You can tell her whatever feels right," Moyle replied. "Just know you're not alone." The little girl hugged her unexpectedly, tight, warm, trusting. Moyle froze, then wrapped her arms around her. She had never been hugged like this by a child. It hit differently, like being handed responsibility she never asked for, but now felt honored to carry. When they arrived at the school, kids ran around the playground, parents chatted, and teachers greeted students cheerfully. The normalcy of it all contrasted sharply with the chaos of the day before. Sky held Moyle's hand tightly as they walked in. "Are you coming back?" Sky whispered, stopping short of the classroom door. Moyle knelt. "I'm not going anywhere. After school, I'll pick you up and we'll visit Daddy together, okay?" Sky nodded, relieved. The teacher approached. "Good morning. Is this Sky's mom?" Moyle stiffened. "No, I'm with her dad," she said gently. "He's in the hospital. I'll be caring for her today." The teacher's face softened. "Of course, if she needs anything, I'll call." Sky waved goodbye, and Moyle forced herself to walk away, even though every instinct begged her to stay. Back at the hospital, Deyvon was awake but weak. He struggled to lift himself even a few inches, and every movement seemed to take immense effort. A physical therapist entered, explaining they needed to start sessions early to keep his muscles active. Moyle stepped into the room quietly. Deyvon noticed her instantly. His voice was soft, strained. "You came back." "Of course," she said. "I brought Sky to school. She's doing okay." He closed his eyes, letting relief wash over him. "I owe you for that," he whispered. "No," she said quickly. "You owe me nothing." He gave a faint smile. "That's not how I was raised." The therapist helped him sit upright. His muscles trembled. Sweat beaded on his forehead from the simple act of lifting himself. "You're doing great," the therapist encouraged. Moyle stood by the wall, watching silently, then stepped forward. "Can I help?" she asked. The therapist nodded. "You can support his back when he leans." She moved behind Deyvon, placing her hands gently on his shoulders. His skin was warm under the thin hospital gown. His breathing deepened, not from pain, but from awareness. A moment stretched between them. Not romantic, not rushed, but intimate in a way only near loss can create. He whispered, barely audible, "Why are you still here?" She hesitated, then said softly, "Because you were there for me." His fingers curled slightly, as if gripping invisible strength. "You shouldn't be carrying this," he said. "And you shouldn't have taken a bullet for a stranger," she replied. Their eyes met. A spark, quiet, unexpected, but undeniably present. The therapist continued the session, small stretches, controlled breathing, short movements, but Moyle stayed close, steadying him whenever he leaned too far. He didn't ask her to move. She didn't offer to leave. Something was forming, slow, delicate, real. When the therapist left, the room felt heavier but calmer. Moyle picked up a cup of water and held the straw to his lips. "Small sips," she said. He obeyed, swallowing carefully. After a moment, he whispered, "You look tired this morning." She laughed softly. "Your couch is smaller than it looks." He smirked. "Yeah. Sorry about that." "It's fine. Sky needed me." He exhaled. "Thank you for taking care of her. I didn't want her to see me like this." "She's strong," Moyle replied. "Because she has you." That hit him. She could see it in his eyes. Compliments weren't something he received often. She hesitated before speaking again. "Can I ask you something?" He nodded. "Why did you save me?" He stared at the ceiling for a long moment before answering. "I heard the scream. I saw the man point the gun. I didn't think. I just moved. Sky was behind me. And you were right there." She waited. Finally, he said softly, "No one deserves to be left to fate when someone can help." Her chest tightened. "And I didn't want my daughter to grow up knowing I stood still." Moyle blinked away the emotion forming behind her eyes. He turned to look at her again. "But why are you helping me?" She met his gaze steadily. "Because the world needs people who don't walk away." When she returned to pick up Sky that afternoon, the little girl ran toward her with a joy that startled Moyle's heart. "You came back!" Sky squealed, hugging her tightly. "Of course," Moyle said, lifting her slightly off the ground. "Are you ready to see Daddy?" Sky nodded eagerly. In the car, she talked endlessly. About her day, about her drawings, about how she told her class the frog's name was Captain Pickle, which made Moyle laugh until her eyes watered. Sky's smile in the rearview mirror made the entire day worth it. When they entered the hospital room, Deyvon's face lit up at the sight of his daughter. "Hey, superstar," he whispered. Sky ran to him, careful not to touch the tubes. "Daddy, I had art today, and Moyle stayed with me." He smiled weakly. "I knew she would." Moyle suddenly felt her cheeks warm. Sky pulled out her drawing, a picture of 3 people holding hands. "Sky, Daddy." "And Moyle." The paper wobbled in her grip. "Look." Deyvon stared at the drawing for a long moment, eyes softening, throat tightening. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Moyle had to turn her head slightly, hiding her swelling emotions. As evening settled, Sky climbed onto the chair beside the bed and leaned against her father. Moyle sat quietly on the other side, watching the scene with a warmth she didn't expect. Deyvon looked at her and whispered, "Thank you for giving her a normal day." "It wasn't normal," she said softly. "It was brave." He smiled, a real one this time, fragile but bright. "Maybe tomorrow," he said slowly, "you could read her a bedtime story. She loves when someone reads to her." Moyle nodded. "I'd like that." A simple promise, but in that moment, it felt like the beginning of something neither of them had dared to imagine. Real love doesn't always arrive with warning signs. Sometimes it grows quietly, in hospital rooms, in school pickups, in shared moments that don't feel like coincidences. If you believe love can form in unexpected places, hit that like button. And tell me in the comments if you've ever felt a connection you didn't see coming. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that touch the heart. The next few days followed a new rhythm neither Moyle nor Deyvon had planned for. But somehow, both of them fell into it with surprising ease. Every morning, Moyle woke in the small house where the couch cushion remembered her shape a little better each day. She spent early hours getting Sky ready, fixing simple breakfasts, then driving her to school. After drop-off, she'd head to the hospital to sit with Deyvon, helping whenever therapy sessions got tough or when the pain crept in quietly. And every afternoon, she brought Sky back for their evening visit before taking her home for dinner, homework, and bedtime stories. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't planned. But it was life. Real life. And for Moyle, it felt more meaningful than anything corporate strategy ever gave her. On Friday afternoon, Deyvon was well enough to sit up for longer stretches. The therapist had helped him move from the bed to a chair, and though he winced with effort, he managed. Sky bounced into the room carrying a handful of drawings from school. "Daddy, look, we made paper animals today." She held up a construction paper lion with uneven whiskers. "That's amazing," he said, smiling with pride. Moyle stepped in quietly, carrying a small grocery bag. "Thought you might need a few things," she said, setting it on the bedside table. Inside were clean socks, lip balm, a travel-sized lotion, and a hairbrush. Deyvon blinked slowly. "You didn't have to. I wanted to," she replied softly. And once again, that look passed between them, warm, quiet, grounding. The look of two people realizing their lives were beginning to lean toward each other. The therapist entered to help him stand again. Moyle instinctively moved closer, offering her arm. He hesitated at first, pride flickering across his expression, but the pain in his torso insisted otherwise. He accepted her support. "Let's take small steps," the therapist said. Moyle stood at Deyvon's side, her arm bracing his back, her hand just behind his ribs so he wouldn't lose balance. His breathing hitched once at the contact, but he recovered, too stubborn to let weakness show. "Easy," she whispered. "You're making it harder," he teased softly. "Because I'm helping? Because I'm trying not to fall on you." She smiled. He smiled back. Something tender threaded itself between them. Sky clapped. "You're walking, Daddy." He straightened with effort. "Trying, baby." The therapist nodded approvingly. "You're progressing faster than expected." When the session ended, Deyvon leaned back onto the bed, exhausted but proud. Sky suddenly piped up, "Daddy, can Moyle come to dinner at our house tonight?" Moyle froze. Deyvon blinked. "Dinner?" "Yeah," Sky said. "She can cook eggs, and she can read stories, and she makes me laugh." Moyle chuckled nervously. "Sky?" Deyvon looked between them, his daughter beaming with excitement, Moyle trying to hide a blush, and he exhaled with a soft smile. "Yeah," he said. "I'd like that." Sky jumped in place. "Yay, Auntie Moyle is coming for dinner." The room went absolutely still. Moyle's heart skipped. Deyvon's eyes widened slightly. Sky didn't notice. She was already twirling happily. Moyle knelt and touched Sky's cheek. "Auntie Moyle?" she teased gently. Sky shrugged shyly. "It just feels right." And somehow it did. It really did. The sun was setting when they drove home later that afternoon. The sky glowed orange and soft pink, the road quiet. Sky chattered animatedly in the back seat about how she wanted to show Moyle her favorite book, favorite blanket, favorite mug. Everything was suddenly more exciting because Moyle would be there. Moyle smiled, one hand on the wheel, warmth pooling in her chest. She glanced at the house when they arrived. It was small, worn at the edges, but full of memories and meaning. She had spent the last few nights on the couch, but now it felt less like charity and more like belonging. As they stepped inside, Sky rushed to her bedroom to grab toys to show off. Moyle headed for the kitchen, rolling up her sleeves. "All right," she muttered to herself, "time to figure out dinner." The fridge was still modest, but she managed to find chicken thighs, rice, frozen vegetables, and a jar of seasoning that definitely had a story behind it. She could tell from the nearly rubbed-off label. She started cooking. Sky appeared beside her. "Moyle?" "Yes." "Thank you for helping Daddy." She paused at the sink. "You're welcome." Sky leaned her head against her side. "He's happy when you're there." Moyle swallowed the tightness in her throat. "I'm happy when he's okay." Sky grinned. "So, you like him?" Moyle laughed, flustered. "He's very easy to care about." Sky nodded firmly, as if she was settling the matter. "Good. Daddy needs someone who smiles a lot. He says happy people make houses warmer." Moyle felt her heart expand. In another life she might have dismissed a line like that. But Sky meant it, every word. By the time the meal was done, the house was filled with the comforting smell of homemade food. She plated the dishes just as her phone buzzed, the hospital calling to say that Deyvon could be discharged in the morning if his progress continued. Perfect timing. Later that evening, Moyle returned to the hospital with a packed container of dinner. Sky carried a paper lion she'd made, determined to hang it above her father's hospital bed. When they entered, Deyvon looked surprised. "You cooked?" he asked softly. Moyle nodded. "Rice, chicken, and vegetables." His eyes warmed. "Smells amazing." She set the container on the tray table and helped him sit upright. Sky hopped up onto the chair beside them. As he ate slowly, he watched the two of them interact, Moyle cutting the meat into smaller pieces, Sky talking about school, Moyle listening with genuine interest. He had seen kindness in strangers before, but never this kind, never the kind that stayed through morning routines, school drop-offs, and late-night hospital visits. Never the kind that cared about his daughter like she mattered. It tugged at him, deep and unexpected. As they talked, the conversation drifted to childhood memories. I wasn't allowed to make a mess when I was a kid, Moyle admitted. My father hated it. Everything had to be perfect all the time. Deyvon raised a brow. Perfect? That sounds impossible. It was, she said with a soft laugh. If I drew on the table, the nanny panicked. If I spilled juice, everyone froze. I used to envy kids who could run barefoot through grass without someone yelling about dirt. Sky giggled. You can run barefoot with me. Moyle smiled. Maybe the first will. Deyvon watched her, really watched her. Her laughter was unguarded, her eyes brighter, her shoulders loose. You seem different outside that store, he said gently. She shrugged. I've spent my whole life being told to be composed, to never embarrass my family. But around Sky, she glanced at the child. She makes it easy to be myself. Kids do that, he murmured. Her voice softened. You raised her well, Deyvon. Emotion flickered across his eyes, gratitude mixed with something deeper. Thank you, he whispered. For a moment the three of them sat there, a makeshift family tied together by chaos, now sharing warmth instead of fear. And then, there was a knock on the door. A nurse stepped in holding an envelope. Mr. Deyvon, this came for you. He frowned. For me? From who? The nurse shook her head. It was dropped off at the front desk. No return name. She handed it to him and left. Deyvon stared at the envelope. Plain, white, thin, but something about it made his shoulders stiffen. You okay? Moyle asked quietly. He didn't answer. Sky leaned in. Open it, Daddy. With trembling fingers, he slid the paper out. There were only 4 words inside. 4 words that drained the color from his face. Moyle leaned in slightly, not enough to invade, just enough to see his reaction. What does it say? She asked softly. His voice cracked. It says, well, I'm coming back soon. A cold silence settled over the room. Sky's eyes widened with confusion. Who's coming? Deyvon closed the envelope slowly, fighting a storm inside him. It's nothing, sweetheart, he said gently. Nothing for you to worry about. But Moyle watched him carefully. His jaw tightened. His hands shook. His breathing changed. Whatever past he had, it wasn't peaceful. And whoever wrote that message, they weren't welcome. After Sky fell asleep in the chair and the nurse came to carry her to a nearby resting room, Moyle stayed behind. She couldn't leave him alone with a letter that clearly shook him. Do you want to talk about it? She asked softly. He stared at the wall. Not yet. You don't have to tell me everything, she said, but you don't have to carry it alone either. His eyes lifted to hers. I'm not used to people staying, he whispered. I'm not used to being allowed in, she replied. Silence stretched, soft, delicate, not heavy, not awkward. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Their faces were inches apart, breath mingling faintly. The room dim, the hum of machines steady, time suspended. He leaned forward, and just before their lips touched, a nurse opened the door with a loud clatter of a dropped clipboard. They pulled apart instantly. Moyle cleared her throat, flustered. I should go check on Sky. Yeah, he whispered, equally breathless. But the feeling lingered like a spark refusing to die. The next morning arrived with a heavy quietness that wrapped around the small hospital room. The kind of quiet that didn't feel peaceful, but expectant. Moyle entered carrying a breakfast tray for Sky and a small bag of clothes for Deyvon. She'd gotten used to her routine. Morning at the house, school prep, driving over. But today her steps slowed as soon as she saw Deyvon's expression. He was sitting upright in the bed, staring at the plain white envelope resting on his lap. The same envelope from the night before. Sky was coloring in the corner, humming softly to herself, unaware of the storm brewing around her. Moyle approached cautiously. Did the doctor clear you to sit up this long? Yes, he said distantly, his voice thin. She sat beside the bed. You barely slept. He didn't deny it. Moyle lowered her voice. Do you want to talk about the letter now? Deyvon rubbed his face with both hands, sighing deeply. Talking won't change anything. Sometimes talking helps you breathe again, she said gently. He looked at her, really looked at her, his eyes carrying the weight of years. Later, he whispered, just not now. Not with Sky here. She nodded. No pushing. He needed space. But before she could respond, a loud knock struck the door. A firm, intentional knock, not hospital staff, not a visitor politely checking in. A knock from people who believed they had permission to enter anywhere they wished. Moyle's stomach dropped. Deyvon tensed. Sky kept coloring, oblivious. The door opened before anybody answered. 3 men in dark suits stepped inside, their shoes quiet, their expressions blank, their postures stiff with entitlement. The center man spoke first, hands clasped behind his back. "Miss Moyle," he said sharply. "Your father sent us." The room froze. Moyle stood slowly, her pulse quickening. "Why are you here?" The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone. He pressed a button, and her father's voice filled the room. "Moyle, this has gone on long enough. You need to come back now." She swallowed. "I told you I'd return when—" "No," he interrupted sternly. "You are not a caretaker. You have responsibilities here. Your absence is unacceptable." Sky looked up, confused. "Moyle? What's happening?" Moyle forced a soft smile for the child. "Nothing you need to worry about, sweetheart." The man stepped forward. "We have a car waiting. Your father requests that you leave immediately." Deyvon stiffened, his jaw tightening. Sky stood and hurried to Moyle, grabbing her hand tightly. "You're not leaving, right? You said you wouldn't." Moyle squeezed her hand. "I'm not leaving you." The lead messenger cleared his throat. "Miss Moyle, your father insists." "I don't care what he insists." Her voice cracked through the room like a lightning bolt. Even the suits paused. "Moyle," her father continued through the phone, "you are abandoning your responsibilities. You are embarrassing the family." She blinked. Hard. The old wound reopened. All her life she'd been told she made mistakes simply by being human. She was tired of being scolded for choosing compassion over corporate image. She lifted the phone closer. "Dad," she said slowly, "a man almost died in front of me. I won't pretend nothing happened. That man is not your concern. He saved my life." Silence. Then her father said coldly, "I didn't raise you to act impulsively. You do not belong there. You belong here, with your family." "My family?" she echoed bitterly. "My family doesn't even know me." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Deyvon watched her carefully, not out of judgment, but recognition. He knew that tone, the tone of someone fighting a battle they'd never chosen. Her father's voice sharpened. "Enough. You're coming home." The men in suits moved forward again, and that's when Deyvon spoke. "Back up." His voice was rough, tired, but carried a warning. He shifted in the bed, wincing, but he didn't let it stop him. "You don't walk into this room and tell her where she belongs," he said steadily. "She's been the only reason my daughter has slept peacefully in days. She's been the only stability Sky has had since the shooting." The lead man stiffened. "This doesn't concern you." "It does," Deyvon snapped, "because she does." Moyle's breath hitched. He continued, voice trembling, not with weakness, but with emotion he'd kept buried for too long. "I know what it feels like to lose someone," he said quietly, "and I know what it's like to be left behind. I won't let you force her away from a place where she's finally allowed to breathe." Moyle's chest tightened painfully. Her father scoffed through the phone. "She doesn't belong with people like you." Deyvon closed his eyes for a moment. The pain wasn't physical this time. It was the kind that sank deep, the kind caused by people who believed money gave them the right to determine other people's worth. Moyle's voice shook. "Dad, stop." But he didn't. "You are going to walk out of that room and return to the life you were built for." Something inside her snapped. She lifted the phone, finger hovering over the disconnect button. "Dad," she whispered shakily, "I didn't choose to be born into your world. I didn't choose the pressure, the expectations, the guilt, but I choose this. I choose helping someone who needs me." "You're being emotional," he said sharply. "You're embarrassing yourself." She let out a painful, breathy laugh. "I've been emotional my entire life. You just never cared enough to see it." She ended the call. The men shifted awkwardly, unsure what to do without orders. "You can leave," Moyle said firmly. "We were instructed." "You can leave," she repeated, stepping closer, "or I'll call security." They hesitated, looked at each other, then retreated silently, closing the door behind them. The moment they were gone, the room deflated with tension. Sky ran into Moyle's arms, hugging her waist. "Don't go. I'm here," Moyle whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." A heavy silence hung between Moyle and Deyvon after Sky stepped aside to gather her crayons. She walked to the bed slowly. "You okay?" He didn't answer. His shoulders trembled. She sat beside him carefully. "Talk to me." He tried to breathe evenly, but his breath hitched. His voice cracked as he spoke. "That letter, the one from last night, it's from someone who took everything from me." Moyle listened, leaning closer. "She left," he whispered. "Left me, left Sky. No explanation, no apology, just gone." Moyle's eyes softened. "Her mother?" He nodded. "She hurt us both. She made promises she never planned to keep. And for years, I've been rebuilding pieces she left broken." He put a hand over his eyes, trying, failing, to hold himself together. "I'm tired, Moyle. I'm so tired of pretending I'm strong all the time." Her heart cracked open. She didn't say it's okay. She didn't say be strong. She simply reached out and held his hand. His fingers gripped hers, desperate, trembling, real. "No one should carry that alone," she whispered. He lifted his head slowly, eyes red. "You shouldn't get involved in my mess." "Messes don't scare me," she said softly. "Loneliness does." He blinked, swallowing hard. She continued, her voice gentle but firm. "I'm not here out of pity, Deyvon. I'm here because I choose to be." He stared at her, stunned, shaken, undone. And in that moment, something aligned between them. Not love spoken aloud, not a confession. Something quieter, but deeper. A decision forming. A heart choosing. Moyle stood, walked to the window, then turned back to face him. "My father thinks I'm lost," she said quietly. "But I think maybe I'm finally finding a life that feels like mine." Sky looked up from her crayons, smiling. "Moyle belongs here," she said sweetly. A simple sentence, but it hit like a promise. Moyle knelt beside the bed, meeting Deyvon's gaze. "I'm staying," she whispered. "Not because of obligation, not because of guilt, not because anyone told me to." She paused. "I'm staying because this feels right." Deyvon exhaled shakily, emotion threatening to spill again. He didn't reach for her hand this time. She reached for his, and he held on like he'd been waiting for someone to choose him for years. "Before we continue, tell me honestly in the comments, have you ever fought for something your family didn't understand? Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight quietly, for our happiness, our peace, our heart. If this moment touched you, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that speak to the soul. The following morning began differently, not with Sky's excited chatter, not with Moyle's warm presence moving around the kitchen, not with a quiet comfort they had unknowingly built together. It began with distance, a sharp, unfamiliar kind of distance. When Moyle entered the hospital room, carrying breakfast for Sky and fresh clothes for Deyvon, she felt it like a wall, invisible, cold, and intentional. Deyvon didn't look at her. He was sitting upright, staring out the window at a sky that looked tired and heavy, matching the mood in the room. Sky ran in first. "Daddy, guess what? My frog lost his hat, but I—" "Hey, baby," he said, forcing a smile, but not quite meeting her eyes either. Moyle's stomach tightened. Something was wrong. Very wrong. She approached slowly. "How are you feeling this morning?" Deyvon nodded once. "Better." One word. Flat. Clipped. Not the man who held her hand the night before. Not the man who let his voice crack in front of her. Not the man who allowed himself to be seen. He had pulled something back. Closed a door. And she wasn't sure whether she should knock or walk away. Sky was busy showing him a drawing she made at school yesterday. 3 stick figures holding hands. Daddy, Sky, and Moyle. But Deyvon kept adjusting the blanket, fiddling with the 4-chord, pretending to be preoccupied. He wasn't avoiding Sky. He was avoiding Moyle. She felt her throat tighten. "Did something happen?" "No," he said quickly. Too quickly. She sat down beside the bed, not close enough to crowd him, but close enough to talk. Deyvon, Moyle, I'm fine. This time the words came sharper. Sky stopped coloring and watched them both. Moyle lowered her voice. If this is about yesterday, it's not, but, Moyle. He said her name without looking her way. Not angry, not cold, but wounded, deeply wounded, and trying to hide it so she wouldn't ask questions. She leaned back slowly, heart sinking. For the rest of the morning, he barely spoke to her. He thanked her for helping the nurse. He answered when she asked about his pain level. But the warmth, the look, the openness, every tender thread between them, he had cut it somehow. And she didn't know how to tie it back yet. After a while, she stepped into the hallway to catch her breath. She leaned against the wall, pressing a hand against her sternum. The ache wasn't dramatic or cinematic. It was quiet. The kind of ache you feel when something good slips through your fingers before you even get a chance to hold it. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down. Director Shelton, corporate board, her breath caught. She stepped farther down the hall before answering. Hello? Moyle, the director said, voice crisp. I'll get straight to the point. The board met this morning. Given your long-term performance, crisis management skills, and the influence you hold in the company, she frowned. Influence? Yes. You're respected despite your father's rigidity. We believe it's time you step into a real leadership position. Her pulse quickened. What are you saying? We want you on the board. The world stopped spinning. A board seat. Something she'd chased silently for years. Something she'd worked toward without acknowledgement. Something she'd dreamed of but didn't dare believe was possible. Then the director continued. But it requires relocation. You'll need to return to the city full-time, and immediately. Her stomach dropped. Immediately? Yes, we need you in New York by Monday. That's 3 days from now. Her back pressed against the wall for support. 3 days? She closed her eyes. Sky's smile. Deyvon's voice cracking in the dark. Their almost kiss, the drawing of the three of them holding hands. 3 days. The director misread her silence as excitement. Congratulations, Moyle. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. Opportunity. She looked through the window at Deyvon sitting in bed, staring at the floor, hiding his pain, pushing her away before she could choose something else first. Moyle? Are you there? She swallowed. Yes, I'm here. We'll send the contract shortly. Review it and respond as soon as possible. I will. She ended the call but didn't move. Her breath trembled. Her ribs tightened. Her heart twisted viciously. Why now? Why offer her everything just when she had finally found something real? When she stepped back into the room, Sky ran to her immediately. Moyle, want to see my new picture? Of course, she said, kneeling. Sky held up another drawing, this one more detailed. It showed a house, 3 people, a son with a smile. Who's this? Moyle asked gently. Sky pointed proudly. That's you. And this? Moyle asked, pointing to the smaller figure. Me. And Daddy? Sky nodded. Moyle smiled softly, but her heart hurt. Sky hesitated, then whispered, Moyle, are you my new mommy now? The question hit like a wave. Deyvon jolted upright as if shocked. Sky, he started. Sky looked between them, confused by the tension. I mean, you're always here, and you take me to school, and you read with me, and you cook for me, and Daddy smiles more when you're here. Her voice softened. So, are you gonna be my mommy? Moyle inhaled shakily. Children didn't understand timing, fear, adult mistakes, or emotional walls. Children only understood feelings, and Sky felt loved. Moyle whispered. Deyvon cut in quietly, voice low. Sky, she's not. His words faded, because even he didn't believe them fully. But Sky just looked at Moyle with wide, hopeful eyes. Well? She asked gently. Are you? Moyle's throat constricted. She looked at Deyvon. He looked away, avoiding again. That answered the question for her. For now, she put a hand on Sky's cheek. I care about you so much, sweetheart. So much. But right now, we're just taking things one step at a time. Sky nodded slowly, trying to accept it. But Moyle saw the disappointment flicker, and it broke her. After Sky stepped into the bathroom to wash her hands, Moyle stood beside the bed. "Why are you pulling away?" she asked quietly. Deyvon stared at the blanket. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't do that," she whispered. "Not with me." He swallowed hard. "Moyle, you don't belong here." Her breath caught. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Are you saying that because you believe it, or because someone made you feel unworthy?" His jaw clenched. She stepped closer. "Talk to me, please." He closed his eyes. "I'm scared," he finally whispered. She froze. "What are you scared of?" He breathed shakily. "That you'll wake up one day and realize I'm not enough." Her heart twisted. "That your life, your world, everything you're capable of, it's too big for someone like me." He gestured to the small room. A single dad, a broken body, a messy past. He finally looked at her. "You deserve someone clean, someone whole." She leaned closer, voice firm. "I never asked you to be perfect." He laughed bitterly. "And I can't ask you to stay. You're not asking me to. I'm choosing it." "You shouldn't." "Why not?" "Because," he whispered, "love breaks things, and I don't have pieces left to give you." The honesty cut deeper than anger ever could. She blinked tears away. "Deyvon, you don't get to push me away because you think you're protecting me." But he turned his face aside again, refusing her closeness, refusing the possibility of something real. She stood there, feeling the invisible door slam between them. And then Sky returned, smiling, unaware, and Moyle composed herself instantly, not willing to let her see the fracture. Hours passed. Sky napped beside her father. The nurse adjusted Deyvon's bandages. Moyle sat quietly, her mind spinning. Her phone buzzed again. The board contract had arrived. She didn't open it. Not yet. Not when her heart was still trying to choose between a life built for her and a life she was building herself. As the sun dipped low, Sky woke and stretched. "Moyle," she whispered, "can we go home now? My frog needs dinner." Moyle kissed her forehead. "Of course." She gathered their things, then turned to Deyvon. "I'll bring her back in the morning." He nodded faintly, but something in his eyes said he didn't believe it. Something in his posture said he was already letting her go, and something in her heart whispered, "Don't let him." But she couldn't fix what he wouldn't let her hold. On the drive home, Sky leaned against Moyle's arm in the back seat, humming to herself, blissfully unaware of adult heartbreak. Moyle blinked back tears. She loved that child. She cared for that man. She was being offered power she'd spent her whole life chasing. She was being pulled in two different directions by two different worlds. Her phone buzzed again with a reminder. Board meeting approval. Due in 48 hours. Sky looked up at her. "Moyle?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Are you staying forever?" The question shattered her. Her lips parted. Her breath hitched. Her heart broke under the weight of what she wished she could promise. She whispered, "I don't want to leave you," but she didn't say she'd stay, because she didn't know if she could. Fade out. "Before we continue, I want to hear from you. What would you do in Moyle's position? Choose the dream you built your whole life for, or the unexpected love that finally feels real?" Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and make sure you subscribe. The next chapter gets intense. The night after Sky asked Moyle if she was her new mommy, Moyle barely slept. She lay on Deyvon's couch staring at the ceiling while the air conditioner hummed its uneven rhythm. Every few minutes she checked on Sky, ensuring the little girl was asleep and safe. And each time she returned to the couch, her thoughts spun in circles about Deyvon's distance, about the board position, about whether she was ruining everything simply by caring too much. When dawn finally brushed light across the living room, she sat up slowly, rubbing her temples. Her phone buzzed again. Board contract, pending signature. She didn't open it, not when her heart felt too full, too confused. Sky quietly padded into the room wearing her frog pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Moyle, are we going to see Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered. "Let's get breakfast first." Sky hugged her waist tightly, and Moyle closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the trust she never expected to receive, the warmth she wished she could promise forever. But underneath that warmth, something else stirred. Fear. Fear that she would lose all of this if she made the wrong choice. By the time they reached the hospital, Deyvon was sitting upright, staring at the window again. The same distant expression on his face, the same guarded posture. He turned when they walked in. "Hey," he said softly, but not warmly. Sky rushed to him and climbed onto the bed, wrapping her arms gently around his uninjured side. He managed to smile for her. "Morning, princess." Moyle set her bag down and approached quietly. "How are you feeling today?" "Better," he replied, again giving the shortest possible answer. She nodded. She'd expected that. She wasn't going to push him today, not after yesterday's storm. Instead, she unpacked breakfast, arranged his tray, helped him adjust the pillows, and waited for him to breathe, talk, open up on his own time. But the second she picked up yesterday's envelope from the bedside table, he stiffened. "I want to throw this away," he said abruptly. Moyle froze. "The letter? I don't want to think about it anymore." He reached for it, but the motion caused a sharp pain in his torso and he winced. Moyle stepped forward quickly. "Let me..." She picked up the envelope, but instead of discarding it immediately, she opened it again. The same 4 words stared back at her. "I'm coming back soon." Something about it felt unfinished, tense, like the shadow of a secret neither of them had the tools to face yet. She gently slid the paper back inside. "Who sent this?" she asked softly. He didn't answer. She waited. Finally, he exhaled shakily and whispered, "I think it's connected to my past, the part I haven't told you about." Her heartbeat slowed. He looked away, his jaw clenching. "I didn't want to bring it up. Not now. Not with you and Sky getting close. It felt cruel to drag you into something I buried years ago." Moyle stepped closer. "Whatever it is, you don't have to carry it alone." He shook his head. "This isn't something people forgive easily." She frowned. "Forgive?" A long silence filled the room. Then he said the words she didn't expect. "Moyle, I used to work for your father's company." The air in her lungs froze. She stared at him, unable to speak, unable to blink. "What?" she finally whispered. He nodded once, steady but tense. "Years ago." "That's not possible," she said automatically. "I would have..." "You wouldn't know," he said quietly. "Your father kept things separated. I was low level, disposable." The word cut her like a blade. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wasn't fired. I was pushed out." Her heart dropped. "What happened?" Deyvon hesitated, long enough to make her chest tighten. Then he spoke slowly, each word landing like a small wound. "There was a scandal. An investment scandal." Her stomach twisted. "My father..." "No," he said quickly. "Not him. Someone under him. A supervisor. He manipulated numbers, covered his tracks. I found out and I was going to report it." "So, what happened?" "He begged me not to," Deyvon whispered. "Said he'd lose everything. Said his family would starve. Said he'd fix it if I just stayed quiet." "And you believed him?" "I wanted to," he said, voice breaking slightly. "I was younger, newly married. Sky was a baby. I needed the paycheck." Moyle swallowed hard. "But he didn't fix it." Deyvon nodded slowly. "When the company discovered the discrepancies, he shifted the blame to me." Her eyes widened. "No. He claimed I handled the accounts, that I manipulated them. He had emails, forged but convincing, my signature duplicated. It looked airtight." Moyle stepped back, her breath quickening. "My father fired you," she whispered. "Yes," he said quietly. "Not just fired me. He made sure I couldn't find work in finance again." Moyle felt her pulse in her ears. "Why didn't you fight it? Why didn't you sue?" "Because I didn't have money for a lawyer. And because..." He stopped. "What?" she asked. He looked away. "Because my wife left the same week. I didn't have the strength to fight anyone." Silence fell so thick it felt suffocating. "How did you survive?" she asked. "Barely," he said. "I worked odd jobs, construction, maintenance, whatever I could find. It wasn't enough, but Sky needed me." Moyle covered her mouth. The pieces were beginning to connect, her father's dismissive attitude, the coldness in his voice, the lack of guilt for firing a man who took the fall for someone else. "What was the supervisor's name?" she asked. He shook his head. "Don't go digging." "I need to know." He closed his eyes, defeated. "His name was Ezra." Moyle repeated it under her breath. Ezra. Not a name she recognized, but definitely someone under her father's leadership at the time. Her heart sank deeper. "My father never mentioned this," she whispered. "He wouldn't," Deyvon said. "To him, I was just a worker who disappointed him. Someone easy to replace." She pressed her hand against the bedside rail for support. What does the letter mean? Why is someone coming back? I don't know, he admitted. But I think it's connected. Maybe Ezra. Maybe someone who knew about it. Suddenly the tension from the last few days made sense. The avoidance, the fear, the distance. He wasn't pulling away because he didn't want her. He was pulling away because he was terrified she would discover the truth and disappear before he could lose her gently. He looked at her, voice trembling. I didn't want you to see me as a failure, Moyle. Her eyes filled. You're not a failure. You say that now, he whispered. But when you see what your father's company did to me, when you see what I had to do to survive, you'll leave. Everyone leaves eventually. She took a step toward him. Stop deciding my choices for me. His breath hitched. But before he could respond, a nurse entered to check his vitals. The moment shattered. Moyle stepped back, wiping her eyes quickly. The nurse left after a few minutes, and the room felt strangely cold. Later that afternoon, when Sky was drawing in the family lounge, Moyle stepped into a quiet hallway and called her assistant at the company. I need files, she said quietly. Old ones. From 5 years ago. What kind of files? The assistant asked. Financial department, employee terminations, misconduct reports, anything with the name Ezra in it. Ezra, the assistant repeated. We had an Ezra Yates, fired around that time. Send everything you have, Moyle whispered. I will. But Moyle, be careful. That was a messy situation. Her heart thudded. How messy. Your father threatened to bury the entire department if anyone talked. A chill ran up her spine. She ended the call and leaned against the wall, fighting tears. Her father wasn't just strict. He wasn't just controlling. He wasn't just demanding. He destroyed people. Good people. People like Deyvon. People who didn't deserve to have their lives crushed. She pressed a hand over her eyes. What was she supposed to do with this knowledge? When she re-entered the room, Deyvon looked exhausted, both from pain and from the weight of reliving his past. I'm going to fix this, she whispered. His eyes snapped up. No, Moyle, listen to me. I'm going to find out what really happened. You don't know what you're walking into, he warned. This isn't a simple mistake. These were powerful people, people with real influence. I grew up around powerful people, she said steadily. I know exactly how they operate. I don't want you to get hurt because of me. Too late, she whispered. His breath caught. She continued, voice softer. I'm already involved, and I'm not stepping back. Still, he shook his head. You shouldn't throw away your future for someone like... Don't finish that sentence, she warned. He closed his eyes, tears gathering at the edges, but he didn't argue again. As evening approached, the nurse dimmed the lights, and Sky curled against the side of the bed, half asleep. Moyle tucked a blanket around her, gently brushing Sky's curls away from her forehead. When she stood, Deyvon looked up at her with a raw, aching expression, one that said he wanted to hold her and push her away at the same time. She stepped closer. He didn't move. Their hands brushed lightly on the edge of the bed. He inhaled sharply. She lifted her hand to his cheek. He leaned into it, helplessly, gratefully, like he'd been starving for touch. Moyle, he whispered. She lowered her face toward his. Slowly, carefully, heart first. Their lips hovered inches apart. Her eyes fluttered closed. His breath mingled with hers. It should have been a kiss that sealed their bond. Instead, he pulled back slightly. Moyle, if you kiss me now, you'll be tied to all of my broken pieces. She opened her eyes, hurt flickering across her face. He continued, voice trembling. And I don't know how to let someone love a man who's still running from the ghosts of his past. Pain stabbed her chest. Deyvon, she whispered. I'm not afraid of your ghosts. But I am, he said. Silence swallowed them. Tears filled her eyes, not because of rejection, but because of the fear behind his words. She let her hand fall. He looked away. The moment shattered. The kiss didn't happen, and the empty space between them felt louder than any scream. Before the story continues, tell me in the comments, do you believe love can survive secrets from the past? Sometimes the truth pulls people closer, and sometimes it breaks them apart. If this moment touched your heart, hit like and make sure you're subscribed. The storm is just beginning. The tension didn't ease after the broken almost kiss. In fact, it grew heavier, sinking into Moyle's chest like a weight she couldn't shake. That night, she took Sky home, tucked her into bed, and sat in the living room with the lamp casting soft shadows across the small space. She opened her laptop and reviewed the documents her assistant had sent, files from the company archives. Her hands trembled as she read line after line. Termination notice, Deyvon reason, financial misconduct secondary notation, internal risk, loss of trust signed by CEO her father. Beside those documents were internal emails, some clean, some vague, some clearly missing pages, and some ominous messages hinting at secrets, messages hinting at a cover-up, messages showing Ezra pushing the blame downward, firmly, aggressively, with language that implied he had higher protection. The deeper she read, the colder her hands became. Her father didn't just fire Deyvon. He buried him so deeply that he couldn't climb back into his career, into financial safety, into dignity. Moyle leaned back on the couch, closing her eyes as a tear slipped down her cheek. How much had her father ruined? How many lives had he crushed in his drive for perfection? How many people like Deyvon carried scars because of him? A gentle voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Moyle. She turned. Sky stood in the hallway wearing her frog pajamas, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Why are you crying? Sky whispered. Moyle forced a smile and wiped her cheeks. Just tired, sweetheart. Sky climbed into her lap without hesitation. Daddy says tired tears still count as real tears. A quiet laugh escaped Moyle, small but genuine. Sky rested her head on her chest. Are you gonna leave us? The words hit harder than any file she'd read. Moyle wrapped her arms around her tightly. I'm not leaving you, she whispered. I promise. Sky nodded against her. Okay. 'Cause Daddy needs you, and I need you too. Moyle's throat tightened. She kissed Sky's forehead, carried her back to bed, and held her hand until she drifted off. But sleep didn't find Moyle. She lay awake thinking of Deyvon's trembling voice, the letter's warning, her father's coldness, the board position, and the way her heart kept pulling her back to the little family that wasn't hers yet, but felt like it could be. Sky woke with newfound energy. Can we go see Daddy early? I miss him. Of course, Moyle said, brushing her hair. But halfway to the hospital, her phone rang. Her father. Again. She didn't answer. Not yet. Not until she had her own clarity. When they reached the room, Deyvon was sitting stiffly, staring at nothing. The distance was still there, but beneath it, fear, shame, self-protection. He looked up when he saw Sky. Hey, superstar. She ran to him, hugging him carefully. Moyle approached slower. We need to talk, she whispered. He nodded without looking directly at her. But before she could speak, the door swung open. Her father walked in, a storm in a tailored suit. 2 security men followed behind him. Moyle froze. Deyvon tensed. Sky looked confused. Her father's voice cut through the room like a blade. We are ending this nonsense right now. Moyle stepped forward quickly. What are you doing here? Her father ignored her and looked directly at Deyvon. You caused enough trouble once, he said coldly. You will not drag my daughter into your mess again. Deyvon's eyes sharpened, not angry, but wounded. Again. Dad, stop, Moyle snapped. No, her father ordered. You're coming home with me today. This is over. Sky clutched the blanket, confused and frightened. Moyle, I'm here, she whispered. Her father's gaze swept the room. This man is a liability, he said. He has a past he hid from you. A past that could ruin our family's reputation. Moyle stepped between them. He has nothing to be ashamed of. He was fired for misconduct. He was framed. The room fell silent. Her father blinked slowly, caught off guard. Oh, he said quietly. I see you've been digging. Enough to know what really happened. You know nothing, he said sharply. You only know what emotional people want you to believe. Emotional? She repeated, her voice rising. He lost everything because of your company. Her father didn't flinch. Collateral damage happens. Moyle felt something snap inside her. Collateral? She whispered. He's a father, a human being, not a broken piece of machinery you can discard. Her father sighed as if bored. You're speaking like a child. No, she snapped with force. I'm speaking like someone who finally sees the truth he never allowed her to see. Her father took a step closer, lowering his voice. "This is your last warning, Moyle. You come with me now or you lose the board position. Permanently." Deyvon looked down at his hands. Pain spread across his face. Pain that said, "Don't lose everything because of me. I'm not worth it." But Moyle wasn't looking at him. She was looking at her father, the man who shaped her fears, her insecurities, her emotional restraints. "Do you know what I'm tired of?" she said quietly. Her father frowned. "What?" "Being controlled." Her father stiffened. "And being used." A flash of anger crossed his face. "And pretending your cruelty is strength." Now he inhaled sharply. "And most of all," Moyle said, voice steady but trembling with emotion, "I'm tired of choosing your world over my own heart." Her father scoffed. "This man cannot give you a future." Moyle stepped closer to him. "And you think you know what I want for my future? I raised you for success." "No. You raised me for obedience." Deyvon's breath caught. Her father looked stunned, as if she had slapped him. Then his anger returned tenfold. "You're throwing your life away for someone who will drag you down." Moyle didn't blink. "No. I'm refusing to let you drag me down." Her father took a step forward. Deyvon's protective instincts flared instantly. Despite his injury, he pushed himself forward. "Stop talking to her like that," he warned quietly. Her father turned on him. "And you stay out of this." Sky, frightened by the rising voices, covered her ears. "Stop yelling," she cried. "Please stop." But no one heard her. Not until, "Daddy, is Moyle leaving me?" The room froze. Sky's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Deyvon, then at Moyle, then at the intimidating man in the suit. "Is she leaving like Mommy left?" The silence shattered. Deyvon's face crumpled. Moyle's knees nearly buckled. Her father didn't move, almost as if the question didn't register as important. But it was more important than anything else in the room. "Sky," Moyle whispered, rushing toward her. "I'm not," but Sky turned and ran. Fast, out the door down the hall, her little footsteps echoing like thunder. "Sky," Deyvon shouted, trying to sit up but wincing in pain. "I'll get her," Moyle cried and sprinted after the child. Moyle ran through the hallways calling Sky's name. Nurses looked startled. Visitors turned their heads. A child running alone was no small matter. "Sky, baby, where are you?" Her heart hammered, her breath came fast. Fear crawled through her veins. Finally, she heard soft sobbing near a vending machine. She turned the corner, and there Sky sat on the floor, hugging her knees, tears streaming down her face. Moyle fell to her knees beside her. "Sweetheart, you're leaving too," Sky sobbed. "Everybody leaves. Mommy left. Now you're leaving." "No, no, no," Moyle whispered, pulling her into her arms. "Look at me. Look at me." Sky clung to her shirt, shaking. "I'm not leaving you," Moyle said firmly. "Ever. Do you hear me?" Sky cried harder. Moyle lifted her face gently, brushing away the tears. "You are not losing me," she said. "I choose you. I choose your daddy. I choose this family, no matter what happens." Sky sniffled. "But your daddy said you have to go." "He doesn't get to choose my heart," Moyle whispered. "I choose where I belong." "And you belong with us?" Sky asked timidly. Moyle nodded. "I belong right here." Sky threw her arms around her neck again, crying into her shoulder, but this time the sobs softened, shrinking into quiet, exhausted sniffles. Moyle held her for a long moment, rocking her gently. "I'm here," she whispered again and again. "I'm not leaving. I promise." When Moyle carried Sky back inside, the tension in the room had exploded into silence. Her father stood rigid. Deyvon looked tormented. Sky wiped her face. Moyle stared directly at her father. "You need to leave," she said. Her father's jaw tightened. "Moyle, leave." He hesitated, and then he walked out without another word. The door closed behind him, and a new chapter began. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose between your family's expectations and your own heart? These choices define us, they build us, they free us. If this moment moved you, tap like and make sure to subscribe for what comes next, because things are about to get even more intense. The morning after Sky ran down the hospital hallway, the world felt different. Not lighter, not calmer, but clearer. Almost as if something inside Moyle had finally stopped whispering and started speaking plainly, a voice she'd ignored for years, buried under board expectations, family reputation, and the polished hardness she was trained to wear like armor. Today, there would be no armor. Today, she was going to face everything. Sky clung to her leg when she woke. "Are you still staying?" she whispered sleepily. "I'm staying," Moyle assured her, brushing her cheek gently. "And Daddy, is he okay?" "He's hurting," Moyle admitted softly, "but he's strong, and he loves you more than anything." Sky nodded slowly, trusting her word completely. As Moyle walked into the kitchen to make tea, she felt the weight of the coming day pressing down on her shoulders. She had a meeting. The one she'd avoided for too long. The board gathering where her father expected to parade her as his successor and secure her future as the face of the company. But that future was never hers. Not really. Not anymore. She placed both hands on the counter and took a long, steadying breath. She wasn't going to pretend. She wasn't going to protect lies. She wasn't going to sit silently while men in tailored suits made decisions that crushed innocent people like Deyvon. Today, she was going to choose truth over fear. Before heading to the company headquarters, Moyle drove straight to the hospital. Deyvon was awake, sitting up against his pillows when she stepped in. The morning sun lit the room gently, and for once, he didn't look like he was carrying the weight of 10 years on his back. Still, when he saw her, something flickered in his expression. Concern, guilt, longing. "You shouldn't be here this early," he murmured. "You need rest." She shook her head. "There's something I need to do today, and I wanted to see you first." His brow folded in worry. "You okay?" She moved closer, sitting beside his bed. "I'm making a choice," she said. "A real one. For me." His jaw tightened. "Moyle, you don't have to throw your life away because of what happened between me and your father." "I'm not throwing it away," she said quietly. "I'm reclaiming it." He looked at her for a long moment, eyes softening with something that looked dangerously close to pride. "What should I say?" he whispered. "Nothing," she replied. "Just be here when I come back." He nodded, swallowing thickly. Sky climbed onto the bed and hugged him tight. "We love you." Deyvon closed his eyes as if the words warmed something he thought had frozen permanently. "I love you both," he whispered back. When Moyle arrived at the headquarters, a towering glass structure in downtown Atlanta, her stomach turned. She had walked through these revolving doors her entire life, as a child holding her father's hand, as a teenager shadowing company leaders, as a woman being groomed to take over, but today she walked in with no father to guide her, no agenda to follow, and no script to memorize. Today her steps were her own. When she entered the boardroom, the atmosphere shifted instantly. 12 executives sat around the table in polished suits. A few smiled politely. Most looked wary, and at the head of the table sat her father. He didn't smile. He didn't acknowledge her. "Let's begin," he said flatly. She sat down but did not open the folder placed in front of her. A senior board member cleared his throat. "Moyle, we're here to finalize your integration into the next phase of leadership. Your father has proposed an accelerated transition, pending your agreement." Her father leaned back, steepling his fingers, a power pose he'd used for decades. "We need stability," he said, not looking at her. "And you bring stability." She swallowed. "Is that what you think I am?" The room grew still. Her father finally met her eyes. "You are the natural choice." "No," she said, her voice steady. "I am the convenient choice." A ripple of murmurs moved through the board. Her father's jaw tightened. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means," she said clearly, "you're not choosing me for my leadership. You're choosing me because you want someone who will never challenge you." The room froze. Her father's expression hardened. "This is not the time for whatever personal rebellion you think you're staging." "This isn't rebellion," she said quietly. "This is truth." One board member leaned forward. "Is there a concern we should know about?" Moyle placed both hands on the table. "Yes," she said. "A major one." Her father's eyes flashed, warning her silently. She ignored it. "Years ago," she continued, "the company wrongfully terminated an employee named—" "Enough," her father snapped, but it was too late. The board members straightened, sensing a fracture. Moyle stared directly at her father. "We destroyed someone's life." Her father slammed his hand on the table. "We did no such thing." "Dad," she said quietly. "I've seen the documents." A hush fell over the room. Her father's face paled, then turned a dangerous shade of red. "You accessed files you had no business viewing," he growled. "And I found out the truth," she said. "A supervisor manipulated numbers, and the wrong person paid the price." Shocked looks spread across the table. Her father rose from his seat. "Moyle, step outside. Now." "No," she said, and for the first time in her life, it didn't feel like defiance. It felt like freedom. "I'm not stepping outside. I'm stepping out." Confusion swept the boardroom. "What does that mean?" one executive asked. Moyle closed the folder in front of her, pushed it toward the center of the table, and stood. "I resign." A collective gasp followed her words. Her father's mouth fell open, fury and disbelief colliding in his expression. "You don't resign from your own legacy," he seethed. She looked at him with heartbreaking clarity. "It was never mine," she whispered. "It was yours, and it came at too high a cost." "You're being emotional," he spat. "For once," she said gently, "I'm being honest." She turned to the board. "Thank you for the opportunity, but I can't lead a company built on silence and fear." And with the steadiness of someone who had finally learned to trust her own heartbeat, she walked out of the boardroom. She didn't look back, not even when she heard her father's voice bark her name, not even when the board erupted in shock, not even when the elevator doors closed and she felt something old inside her break apart, making room for something new. Later that evening, when she returned to Deyvon's home, she walked inside quietly, holding her heels in her hand. She didn't call his name. She didn't announce herself. She simply stood in his kitchen, leaning against the counter, breathing through the day's weight. A moment later, she heard soft footsteps behind her. "You okay?" Deyvon asked gently. She turned to him. The exhaustion in her face told the entire story. "I resigned," she whispered. His eyes widened. "Moyle, are you sure?" "Yes." He swallowed hard. "Because of me?" "No," she said softly. "Because of me." He watched her closely. "What happened in there?" She took a shaky breath. "I told them the truth, all of it. I said the company destroyed someone's life. I said I couldn't be part of something built on crushing people. And then I walked out." For a long moment, he was silent. "Moyle," he whispered finally. "That took courage." "It took more than that," she said, voice trembling. "It took losing the fear of disappointing him." He stepped closer. "You didn't lose anything. You found yourself." Her breath caught. But then she noticed something, a small folder on the kitchen table, marked with handwritten notes. "What's that?" she asked. Deyvon looked almost embarrassed. "A new idea," he said. "Something I've been working on." She picked up the folder and flipped it open. Her eyes widened. "Deyvon, this is a non-profit?" He nodded slowly. "I want to help men who lose everything because of bad systems. Men who get fired unfairly. Men who don't know how to fight back. Men who feel alone." She felt tears sting her eyes. "And you want to run this?" "Yeah," he said shyly. "I think it's time I stopped surviving and started building something that matters." Moyle closed the folder and looked up at him. "This matters," she whispered. Sky ran into the kitchen then, holding a crayon drawing. "Daddy, look." She held up a picture of all three of them, holding hands, standing in front of a house. Deyvon swallowed hard. Moyle knelt beside Sky. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Sky beamed. "This... our family." Moyle looked at Deyvon. He was already staring at her, but this time not with fear. With hope. With belief. With something deep and fragile and brave. "Moyle," he whispered, "I don't deserve any of this." She shook her head. "Yes, you do," she said softly. "You deserve love. You deserve restoration. You deserve a life that isn't defined by pain." He stepped closer, voice barely audible. "And what about you?" She met his eyes. "I deserve a life I choose," she said. "And I'm choosing this." Deyvon's breath trembled as he exhaled. Something warm and alive passed between them, not rushed, not forced, not uncertain. A beginning. A real one. Before we move forward, tell me in the comments, have you ever walked away from something that wasn't right for you, even when everyone expected you to stay? Your story could encourage someone today. The day after Moyle resigned felt strangely calm at first, almost too calm, the kind that makes you pause and listen for a warning you can't quite name. She woke in Deyvon's house, sunlight creeping across the living room rug where she had dozed off after talking with him and Sky far into the night. The house smelled faintly of breakfast, toast, eggs, a little too much butter, and she heard quiet clattering from the kitchen. When she opened her eyes, Deyvon was standing at the stove. His movements were careful, one arm pressed to his healing ribs, but he was determined to flip pancakes without asking for help. "You're supposed to be resting," she said softly. He turned, embarrassed, but smiling. "Yeah, well, I got tired of resting." She stood up, stretching. Sky ran into the room, hair wild, socks mismatched. "Moyle, Daddy made pancakes that look like hearts." Moyle laughed. "He did he?" Sky grabbed her hand. "Come see." Moyle stepped into the kitchen, and for a moment she forgot all about the company, the boardroom, the storm she walked out of. For a moment there was just this, a kitchen that felt lived in, a man trying to reclaim his strength, a little girl who believed love was simple, a morning that looked like a life she could actually want. But the peace didn't last. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She reached for it absent-mindedly, expecting emails, messages, maybe even board members trying to lure her back. But the notification froze her blood. Call from company headquarters, urgent. Her eyes locked on the caller ID. Then on the message that followed, "Your father collapsed during a meeting. He has been taken to the hospital." Her breath caught. The phone slipped from her hand and hit the counter with a soft clatter. "Moyle?" Deyvon asked. Sky frowned. "Are you okay?" She tried to speak, but the air wouldn't move. She swallowed hard. "My father, he collapsed." The room fell silent. Then a soft, instinctive decision surfaced, not out of obligation, but out of humanity. "I need to go," she whispered. Deyvon nodded gently. "I'll drive you." "You shouldn't. Your ribs." "I'm driving you," he repeated firmly, grabbing his keys. Sky tugged on Moyle's hand. "Will he be okay?" "I don't know," Moyle whispered honestly, "but we have to be there." They arrived at a different hospital, not the one where Deyvon had been recovering, a larger one near downtown Atlanta. Executives in suits crowded the waiting room, whispering urgently. Assistants came and went with files. There was tension everywhere, but it wasn't compassion. It was fear of power shifting. When Moyle walked in, the room went still. A few board members approached her. "He collapsed in the middle of a financial review," one said stiffly. "High blood pressure, stress." His heart rate spiked. Another added, "He insisted the meeting continue. Then he fainted." Her throat tightened. Of all the ways she had imagined seeing her father again, it wasn't like this. Not flat on a hospital bed. Not unconscious. Not vulnerable. Not human. A nurse approached. "Are you the daughter?" "Yes," Moyle said quickly. "He's awake now," the nurse said, "a little weak. He asked for you." Her heart fluttered in confusion. Worry, guilt, anger, compassion all tangled into something that stung behind her eyes. She turned to Deyvon. "You and Sky wait here," she whispered. He nodded, gently squeezing her hand. "You can do this," he murmured. She walked down the hallway, each step slowing as she neared the room. When she finally entered, her father lay propped up against pillows, an oxygen tube near him, but not in his nose. He looked smaller somehow, less like the iron wall she had grown up fearing, and more like a man who finally ran out of battles to fight. His eyes lifted. "Moyle," he said quietly. She hadn't heard her name from him in that tone since she was a teenager. She stepped closer. "They said you fainted." He huffed in irritation. "Collapse, they said. Sounds dramatic. I just stood up too fast." She didn't smile. "You scared people," she said. He looked away. "That wasn't my intention." For the first time, she noticed his hands tremble slightly on the blanket. She sat beside him. "Dad, we need to talk." He closed his eyes. "If this is about yesterday, it is," she said firmly. "All of it is connected." He exhaled slowly. "Your mother would have had my head," he said quietly, almost to himself. "She always told me I pushed you too hard." Moyle blinked. "Her mother died years ago, but he rarely spoke of her. Is that why you controlled everything?" She whispered, "Because you thought it kept us safe." He swallowed. Safe, successful, prepared for the world. Pick whichever word helps you forgive me. I'm not sure I'm ready for forgiveness. I didn't expect you to be. Silence filled the room. Her father finally turned his head, meeting her gaze. There was no fire, no command, no intimidation. Just exhaustion. You were right, he whispered. She blinked in surprise. About what? About the company, he said. About what happened to that young man? Deyvon, she corrected softly. He nodded slowly, acknowledging the name he once tossed aside. I knew the supervisor was unstable, he admitted. I didn't think it would go that far. But when the mess landed on the lower staff, He stopped, the words catching. I didn't want to look weak, not to the board, not to investors, not to anyone. Moyle breathed in deeply. People aren't numbers, Dad. No, he agreed quietly, but I treated them like they were. She looked down at her hands. Why didn't you stop it? He sighed. Because stopping it meant admitting I missed something big, and in my position, that's not allowed. Pain rippled through her chest. And what about me? She asked softly. Did you push me because you wanted me strong, or because you wanted me obedient? He closed his eyes, and for the first time in her life he looked ashamed. You were the only thing I didn't want to lose, he whispered. So I tried to shape you into something the world couldn't break. Her breath caught. But you broke me first. A tear slid from the corner of his eye. He didn't wipe it. Moyle, he whispered, voice shaking. I don't know how to fix what I've done. You start by stopping, she said. Stop controlling me. Stop policing my life. Stop dictating who I can love. His eyes widened slightly. Love, he repeated. She didn't respond, but the answer hung between them. He inhaled slowly. I'm sorry, he said. Not loud, not dramatic, not decorated. Just raw, honest, the apology she never thought she would hear. She reached out, gently resting her hand on his. I'm not ready to let you back in completely, she said softly. But I'm not walking away either, not anymore. He nodded, accepting the boundary he spent years violating. That's fair, he whispered. They sat together in quiet, not healed, not fixed, but finally facing the same direction. When Moyle stepped back into the waiting area, Sky ran into her arms immediately. Is he okay? She asked. He will be, Moyle said softly. Deyvon approached slowly, searching her face. How did it go? She exhaled shakily. Not perfect, not painless, but necessary. He nodded. Sometimes necessary is the best we can get. They headed home, not to chaos, not to fear, but to something in between. A transition, a doorway, a shift. After settling Sky into bed, Moyle returned to the kitchen. She found Deyvon standing by the sink, washing a dish slowly, lost in thought. You okay? She asked. He looked over his shoulder. I should be asking you that. She stepped closer. It was hard, but honest. He nodded, looking down at the dish towel. You told him about us? He asked quietly. Not directly, she said, but he knows. And for the first time, he didn't fight me. Deyvon leaned against the counter. Moyle, he murmured, voice low and rough. You deserve someone whose life doesn't drag you into messy history and complicated emotions. She stepped closer. I don't want easy, she whispered. I want real. He inhaled slowly. And you're not scared? He asked. Not of the past, not of what people will say, not of the fact that I'm... She put a hand on his chest gently. I'm scared of one thing, she said. He swallowed. What's that? Losing you. His eyes softened, the walls he kept around his heart crumbling inch by inch. Moyle, he whispered. You make me want things again. Things I thought I wasn't allowed to want. Like what? Like a future that actually feels like mine, he said. A home, a purpose, a life that doesn't feel like a punishment. She touched his cheek, lifting his gaze to hers. None of that is out of reach, Deyvon. He closed his eyes briefly, as if absorbing her words. When he opened them again, they glistened. She didn't rush, didn't push, didn't force. She just stepped close enough for him to feel her presence, her breath, her sincerity. He lifted a hand slowly, as if afraid she might vanish, and placed it gently on her waist. She didn't move away. He leaned forward just slightly, testing, hoping, trembling. She closed the gap. Their lips met softly, not rushed, not desperate, but with the weight of every truth they had spoken and every fear they had dared to let go. It wasn't a dramatic kiss. It wasn't heated or wild. It was human, tender, real, healing. When they finally pulled apart, his forehead rested gently against hers. "Moyle," he whispered, "I don't know what I did to deserve your heart." "You lived," she whispered back. "You survived, and you kept loving your daughter even when life tried to crush you. That's worth loving." He exhaled shakily. She cupped his cheek again. "And you're not alone anymore." He nodded against her hand. Neither spoke for a long time. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt full, comfortable, honest. They stood in that kitchen, two people who had been broken in different ways, and let themselves believe, if only for a moment, that tomorrow might actually be good. Not perfect, not tidy, but good. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, have you ever had a moment where clarity hit you so deeply it changed everything? Your story might help someone else feel less alone. Tap like, drop a comment, and make sure you're subscribed. The morning after their quiet, tender reunion in the kitchen, Moyle woke up feeling something she hadn't felt in months, maybe even years. Stillness, not numbness, not tension, not pressure sitting on her chest. Just stillness. She opened her eyes slowly, realizing she had fallen asleep on the couch. A blanket had been draped over her. She smiled slightly, knowing exactly who put it there. She sat up and listened. Soft humming drifted from the hallway. Sky's voice. "Daddy, don't forget the flowers. Moyle likes the purple ones." Moyle's heart warmed. Then she heard Deyvon chuckle, low, gentle, full of a kind of peace that had been rare on him until recently. "Well, sweetheart, we're not picking flowers inside the house," he said. "But maybe we can draw some." Sky gasped, delighted. "Okay." Moyle rubbed her eyes, letting the sound settle into her bones. This wasn't just healing. This was possibility. She stood, stretching, and walked toward the kitchen. She stopped in the doorway. Sky sat at the table, crayons scattered everywhere, drawing three figures standing under what looked like a bright sun and a playground slide. Deyvon sat beside her, smiling at the drawing as if it were the Mona Lisa. He looked up and saw Moyle. Their eyes met, and even though nothing was said, everything was understood. She was home here, maybe not legally, maybe not officially, but emotionally, spiritually, in all the ways that mattered. "Good morning," Deyvon said softly. She stepped into the kitchen. "Good morning." Sky pointed at her drawing. "Moyle, I made this for you." Moyle took the page carefully as if holding something fragile. "I love it." "It's us," Sky said proudly. "At the park. Daddy said we can go today if he's not too sore." Deyvon raised a brow. "Daddy didn't say that. Daddy said we can talk about it." Sky giggled. "That means yes." Moyle laughed, a real one. "Yeah, that means yes." But the morning wasn't just warm and bright. It was also loaded with something deeper, something Moyle needed to do, something overdue. She kissed Sky's forehead. "I'm heading somewhere for a bit. I'll be back later." Sky frowned. "Where are you going?" Moyle kneeled, brushing Sky's curls gently. "To talk to some people who need to hear the truth." Sky nodded in the solemn, dramatic way only children could. "Okay. Be brave." Moyle smiled. "I will." When she rose, Deyvon caught her arm lightly, concern flickering across his face. "You sure you want to do this today?" "Yes," she said. "Especially today." He nodded, trusting her decision. But as she reached the door, she heard his voice again. "Moyle." She turned. "I'm proud of you." Her chest tightened, not with pain, but with gratitude so deep it made her blink hard. "Thank you," she whispered. Then she left the house, stepping into a morning that felt like it was holding its breath. The building stood on the corner of a busy street, not fancy, not renovated, but alive. Kids ran across the courtyard. Teens leaned against the railing, talking. Older folks sat on benches outside, waiting for a daily meal service. This community center was the heart of a neighborhood overlooked for years. And today, Moyle had been invited to speak, not as a corporate figure, not as a CEO's daughter, not as someone carrying a polished resume, but as someone who had lived through chaos, pain, growth, and truth, and wasn't afraid to say so. When she entered, the director greeted her warmly. No name, no fuss, just a handshake and a nod toward the stage where folding chairs were arranged. She stepped behind the small podium, glanced at the crowd slowly gathering, and inhaled deeply. She didn't prepare a speech. She didn't write talking points. She didn't need notes. She had her heart, and that was enough. When the room settled, she began, "Thank you for being here. I'm not speaking today as someone with a title. I'm not here as a businesswoman or someone from a powerful family. I'm here simply as a woman who has spent her life trying to fit into expectations that didn't belong to me." People leaned in. "I grew up believing strength meant silence, that love had conditions, that power meant never admitting your mistakes. But life has a way of breaking the walls you hide behind." A quiet murmur moved through the room. She continued, voice steady. "I want to talk about 3 things today: love, race, and power." A few eyebrows lifted. She didn't shy away. "Love is not a weakness," she said. "It's a mirror. It shows you who you truly are and forces you to grow. I learned that from a little girl who asked me if I was leaving, and from her father who risked everything for a stranger, because compassion doesn't check skin color or income or background before it acts." A soft rippled through the crowd. "Race," she continued, "is not just a topic for debates or social posts. It's lived, it's felt. It shapes how we see ourselves and each other. And I've learned more about resilience, community, and courage from a man who lost almost everything but never stopped fighting for his daughter's future." People nodded, understanding the depth behind her words. "And power," she said quietly, "is dangerous when used without accountability. I've seen what happens when power protects the wrong people. I've seen lives torn apart because truth was inconvenient." She paused. "My hope now is that we choose power differently, through kindness, through justice, through the courage to admit when we've been wrong and the strength to build something better." A man in the back clapped first, then a woman. Then the room filled with applause. But the sound wasn't loud. It was warm, affirming, healing. When the applause faded, she smiled. "Thank you for letting me share my heart. I'm learning, growing, and trying to choose better every day." She stepped down from the stage and found Deyvon in the doorway. He didn't clap. He didn't approach fast. He just stood there, eyes soft, watching her with a kind of admiration that made her breath catch. "You came," she whispered. "Wouldn't miss it," he said. She walked toward him slowly. "What did you think?" she asked. "You spoke with your heart," he replied. "Not your fear." Her eyes glistened. "And that's something I never learned how to do," he added softly. "Until you—" She inhaled sharply. But before she could respond, Sky ran in, tiny steps pattering across the floor. "Moyle, Daddy, look." She held up a picture she had drawn while Moyle spoke. 3 figures again. But this time, instead of just the 3 of them holding hands, the figures stood inside a small house with a heart on the roof. Underneath, she wrote, large, uneven letters, "Family." Moyle covered her mouth, tears rushing to her eyes. Deyvon knelt beside Sky. "This is beautiful," he whispered. "It's us," Sky said proudly. "Forever." Moyle looked at Deyvon. He looked at her. And without words, something settled between them, something undeniable and committed, something that had been growing quietly since a bullet tore through a grocery store moment and rewrote everything. Deyvon stood slowly, reaching into his jacket pocket. Her breath paused. He pulled out a small box. Not velvet, not expensive, not fancy, just simple, real, sincere. His voice shook. "I don't have a lot," he said, "and I'm still rebuilding, but I know what my heart wants, and what it's waited for." Moyle felt her knees weaken. He opened the box. Inside was a modest, beautiful ring, the kind chosen by someone who thought deeply, loved honestly, and valued meaning over material. "Moyle," he whispered, voice trembling, "you stepped into my life when everything was falling apart. You showed me I'm not defined by my worst days. You showed Sky love that felt like home. You showed yourself courage that changed both of our lives." A tear slid down her cheek. He took a breath. "I don't want to rush you. I don't expect anything. But I want you to know something." He held the ring gently, like something sacred. "I'm ready," he whispered. "When you are—" Moyle covered her mouth, emotion flooding through her, love, gratitude, fear, hope, all swirling into something too powerful for words. Sky tugged her sleeve. "Say yes," Deyvon chuckled shakily. "She doesn't have to answer now." Moyle lowered her hands, tears streaming down her face. She whispered, "Deyvon." But before she could finish, her voice cracked. Not with doubt, with overwhelming, breathtaking love. She didn't answer the proposal. Not yet. Not because she didn't want to, but because some answers deserve silence first, so the heart can speak clearly. Deyvon nodded softly, understanding. He closed the small box, but didn't put it away. He kept it in his hands, waiting, hopeful, steady. And that was enough. For now. Let me ask you this. Do you believe love can heal wounds that life carved deep? Share your answer in the comments. Your story might touch someone who needs it today. Tap like, drop your thoughts below, and make sure you're subscribed. The morning began with a strange kind of quiet, one that felt expectant, like the world had paused for a moment to watch something unfold. Moyle felt it before she even opened her eyes, a softness in the air, a warmth she couldn't quite name yet. She sat up slowly, noticing the blanket draped over her again. Deyvon always did that now. It wasn't dramatic, wasn't showy. It was the gentle kind of care that made you feel seen in ways you didn't ask for. When she stepped into the hallway, she heard him speaking softly to Sky. "No, sweetheart, we're not telling her. It's supposed to be a surprise." Moyle froze, her eyes widening slightly. Sky giggled. "But I'm not good at secrets." "You can keep this one," Deyvon whispered, "just for today." Moyle smiled faintly but didn't reveal herself yet. She leaned against the wall, listening as Sky whispered, "Is it about Moyle's special day?" "It's about our special day," he corrected gently. "All of us." The warmth in her chest grew. She didn't know what he was planning, not fully, but something told her today wasn't just another day. It was a turning point. When she finally stepped into the kitchen, Sky nearly gave away the secret instantly. Her whole face lit up like a sparkler about to ignite. "Moy." Deyvon placed a finger to his lips. "Breakfast first." Moyle raised an amused brow. "What are you two up to?" "Nothing," they said simultaneously, which meant everything. She let it go for now, even though curiosity tugged at her like a child trying to get attention. Over breakfast, pancakes, fruit, scrambled eggs that Sky insisted she help cook, Moyle felt herself absorbing everything as if she needed to store it somewhere safe. Deyvon, wearing a gray sweater that brought out the warmth in his skin. Sky swinging her legs under the table as she talked. The smell of coffee filling the house with a sense of calm. The feeling of belonging settling into her bones. Nobody said it out loud, but all three of them knew something was shifting. Something sacred, something irreversible. After breakfast, Deyvon asked Moyle to come with him. "Just the two of us," he added, gently squeezing Sky's shoulder. "We won't be long." Sky nodded enthusiastically. "I'll draw pictures while you're gone. Maybe one of you holding hands." Moyle felt her cheeks warm. "We'll see what we can do." She followed Deyvon out to his truck. He opened the passenger door for her, something he'd always done, but today it felt different, more intentional, as if he was inviting her into something deeper than a car ride. As they drove through the town, she noticed how quiet he was, not the distant kind of quiet from before, not the worried kind, but the thoughtful kind. He glanced at her once or twice, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly, as if he was holding on to good news he hadn't found the words for yet. "Where are we going?" she asked eventually. "You'll see," he murmured. It wasn't evasive. It was tender. Comfortable silence filled the truck as they left the main road and headed up a long, winding hill that overlooked the entire town. She recognized the area. Families came up here to watch fireworks, teenagers to take pictures, and people in love came to breathe deeply and forget the world. But she had never been up here with him. Not until now. He parked the truck near the overlook, the town stretching out below them like a quiet reminder of everything they had survived, together and apart. The sky was clear, the sun bright enough to warm the air but gentle enough not to burn. He walked around to open her door again. She stepped out slowly, her heart picking up speed. "You okay?" he asked, searching her eyes. She nodded. "Are you—" He let out a nervous breath. "Trying to be—" She smiled softly. "That's honest." He walked toward a spot where he had laid a small blanket earlier that morning, a detail she hadn't noticed until now. On the blanket sat a basket, 2 cups and a thermos. "You planned this?" she asked, surprised. His voice was quiet. "Yeah." She swallowed the knot forming in her throat. "Why?" He gestured toward the blanket. "Sit with me." She sat. He sat opposite her, legs folded, hands clasped tightly as if steadying himself. Moyle, he began, but the word trembled slightly. I've been thinking a lot about everything we've been through. She listened. I spent years believing that life had taken everything from me. My marriage, my job, my dignity, my sense of purpose. He looked away briefly, eyes scanning the town below as if revisiting old wounds. I fought hard to rebuild whatever pieces I had left, but I never thought I'd find something like this again. He turned back to her, his gaze soft but intense. You walked into my life when everything felt broken, and you didn't just help me pick up the pieces, you helped me see the beauty in them. You cared about Sky before you even realized what that meant to me. You stood up for me in ways no one has ever done. Her breath came unevenly. He leaned forward slightly. You saved me, he whispered. Not because I needed a savior, but because you showed me I was still worth saving. The words washed over her like a wave, warm, overwhelming, unexpected. Moyle, he continued, voice steadying now. You've become the place my heart rests. She felt her eyes sting. He reached into his pocket, not rushed, not dramatic, but with a gentleness that made her chest ache. Moyle, I don't have much. I don't have a big name or a fancy title anymore, but what I have, I want to build with you. He opened the box. Inside was the ring. Simple, beautiful, honest. The ring he had shown her inside the community center. But now, it wasn't a when you're ready moment. It was a question, a real one. He breathed in, voice trembling but full of courage. Moyle, will you marry me? Her breath froze, not in fear, not in hesitation, but in pure, overwhelming emotion. She looked at him, the man who took a bullet for a stranger, who raised a daughter with nothing but love, who lost everything but still found the strength to build something new. She thought of Sky's drawings. She thought of her father's apology. She thought of the boardroom she walked away from. She thought of the kitchen confessions, the hospital chaos, the fear, the courage, the nights spent healing and learning. She saw not just the man, but the life beside him. Her voice cracked as she whispered, yes. His eyes widened. Really? She laughed through her tears. Yes, Deyvon. Of course, yes. He exhaled the deepest breath she had ever heard from him. Not a sigh, not relief, but release. Release of years of doubt, fear, loneliness. He slid the ring onto her finger with trembling hands. She leaned forward, tears streaming, and wrapped her arms around him. He held her tightly, one hand on her back, the other pressing her close as though anchoring himself to a reality he never believed he deserved. They stayed like that, holding on to the joy, the promise, the miracle of two broken paths merging into one. When they finally pulled apart, he cupped her face gently. Moyle, he whispered, I love you. She smiled through her tears. I love you too. They sat together for a long time, watching the town below them. Cars moved along the roads. Kids played in backyards. Life continued, but for them, the world had shifted. I want to build a home with you, he said quietly. Not a perfect one. Just one filled with love. I want that too, she said, leaning her head on his shoulder. And I want to be someone Sky is proud of. Deyvon, Moyle whispered. She's already proud. So am I. He closed his eyes, letting those words sink into places he didn't know were still wounded. After a few minutes, he whispered, Should we tell her? Moyle laughed softly. She probably already knows. She'll scream, he said with a smile. She'll cry. She'll ask if she gets another mommy. She'll ask if she can wear a princess dress, Moyle added. They both laughed. It was light. It was healing. It was home. When they pulled into the driveway, Sky was waiting at the door. She ran toward them the second they stepped out of the truck. Moyle, Daddy, you were gone forever. Did you bring snacks? Did you take pictures? Did you? Then she froze. Her eyes flicked to Moyle's left hand, to the ring. Her mouth dropped open. Moyle, she whispered dramatically. Did Daddy, are you? Moyle kneeled. Sweetheart. Sky let out a scream so loud a neighbor peeked out the window. You're gonna marry us? Deyvon burst into laughter. Marry me, kid me. Sky threw her arms around both of them, squeezing with all the love her little body could hold. This is the best day ever. Deyvon kissed the top of Sky's head. Moyle felt tears again, but this time they were from pure, unfiltered joy. Everything they had survived, all the trauma, the fear, the separation, the storms, had led to this moment. this family, this promise, this beginning. Before we head into the wedding preparations, let me ask you something. Have you ever witnessed a love story grow through pain, healing, and joy like this one? Tell us in the comments. Your words might inspire someone today. Tap like, leave a comment, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of this beautiful journey. The wedding had ended hours ago, but the joy lingered in the air like the sweet scent of something warm and familiar. Moyle couldn't stop replaying the day. Her father walking her down the aisle, Sky's bold little toast, Deyvon's vows that made her feel seen in places she didn't even know could be reached. But tonight was quieter, the kind of quiet that followed celebration, full, heavy with meaning, gentle. Deyvon had suggested they end the day with something simple, a family moment with no audience, no expectations, no cameras, no fancy speeches, just them. And so, as the sun began to rest on the horizon, they spread a soft blanket under the shade of a tall oak tree on the outskirts of town, one of Sky's favorite places because she liked to say the branches looked like arms giving big hugs. The field stretched out around them, wide and open, the grass swaying in the breeze like it understood the moment needed softness. The sky was streaked in shades of gold and amber, the kind of colors that made everything feel touched by peace. Sky plopped down dramatically onto the blanket. "Moyle," she said with a deep sigh, "since you're my mommy now, does that mean I get 2 bedtime stories?" Moyle chuckled. 2. Sky nodded firmly. 1 from Daddy, 1 from you. "Because that's fair." Deyvon raised an amused brow. "Who said life was fair?" "I did," Sky declared confidently. Moyle ran her fingers through Sky's curls. "We'll see. Maybe on special nights. Like tonight?" Sky asked hopefully. "We'll see," Moyle repeated, giving a playful side-eye. Deyvon smirked. "You two are gonna gang up on me, aren't you?" Sky placed her hands on her hips. "Daddy, we've been doing that already. Keep up." Moyle burst into laughter, her head falling back slightly. The sound echoed across the open field, soft and free. Deyvon watched her, his eyes softening again. He still wasn't used to moments like this. Peace had always felt temporary in his life, but tonight felt permanent, like a chapter that refused to end. They unpacked the small picnic basket. Simple food, nothing extravagant. Chicken sandwiches, sliced fruit, a couple of cookies Sky insisted they bring for dessert emergencies, lemonade in a mason jar. Moyle sat cross-legged on the blanket, the cool fabric brushing against her legs. She watched Deyvon open the container of sandwiches, and she admired the way he moved. Not rushed, not stressed, just present. "Can you believe we're married?" she whispered. He paused, looked at her with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. "No," he said honestly, "but I'm grateful every second." She brushed her thumb over her ring, the same simple, beautiful ring he had given her on the hill overlooking the town. It caught the sunlight now, casting a tiny sparkle onto the blanket. A signal, a reminder, commitment, promise, love. Sky took a big bite of her sandwich and chewed thoughtfully for a moment. "So, now that we're a family," she began, crumbs on her lip, "can we get a dog?" Deyvon nearly choked. "A dog?" "Yes," Sky said earnestly. "A small one, or a big one, or a medium one, or 2. Moyle laughed. "Let's start with 1 conversation at a time." "But Mommy," Moyle's heart fluttered at the word. She still wasn't used to hearing it. "Yes, sweetheart." Sky grinned. "It's my job to ask for things now. I'm the kid." "She's got a point," Deyvon whispered. "Don't encourage her," Moyle murmured. But truthfully, Moyle loved it, the way Sky felt free enough to ask for anything, the way this new life gave her courage, the way love allowed children to dream with no limits. This was what Moyle had always longed for. Not perfection, not luxury, not corporate status or fancy meetings. This, a blanket in a field, a child's laughter, a man who loved her with truth instead of pretense. After they finished eating, Sky stretched out on her stomach, drawing little shapes into the blanket with her finger. Moyle lay beside her, propping herself on her elbows. "What are you drawing?" Moyle asked. "A house," Sky replied, "with 3 windows, 2 doors, and a big yard." "A big yard?" Deyvon asked. "Why?" "So the dog has room." Moyle shook her head. "She's persistent." Sky continued drawing. "And over here," she pointed to a small circle, "this is the swing. Daddy pushes me. And this, Another circle is the garden. Mommy grows tomatoes. Tomatoes? Moyle asked. Yes, Sky said. You look like someone who grows tomatoes. Deyvon leaned in. She's not wrong. Moyle nudged him playfully. You're both making assumptions. But her smile gave away the truth. She liked the idea. A garden meant roots. Roots meant staying. And staying meant family. The realization made her chest warm. She wasn't drifting anymore. She wasn't performing to earn worth. She wasn't chasing approval. She had landed somewhere safe. As fireflies began to flicker across the field, Sky rested her head in Moyle's lap. Moyle, she whispered, can I ask something? Anything. Do grown-ups get scared too? Moyle exchanged a glance with Deyvon. His eyes softened with understanding. Sky's questions often carried more weight than simple curiosity. Yes, Moyle said softly. Grown-ups get scared all the time. Sky blinked up at her. Even you? Moyle nodded. Especially me. What about Daddy? Deyvon sat closer. Me too. Sky frowned. So, how do you not stay scared forever? Moyle brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. You talk about your fears, you let people help you, and you remember that scary moments don't last forever. Sky thought about that. So, love helps? Moyle felt her throat tighten gently. Yes, sweetheart. Love helps a lot. Sky smiled, a soft, almost sleepy smile, as if she had just learned something important, something she'd hold on to. Children understand wisdom differently. Inside their tender world, truth lands without resistance. As Sky drifted off into a light nap beside Moyle, Deyvon stared at the horizon. I never thought I'd get this, he said quietly. She turned to him. Get what? This, he whispered. A second chance. A real one. Moyle shifted so she was sitting closer. You earned it. You fought for it. He shook his head. I almost didn't. For a long time I thought life had already made up its mind about me. And now? She asked. He looked at her with an expression that held years of pain and healing. Now I know life wasn't against me. It was waiting for me to stop giving up. She took his hand, weaving her fingers through his. You didn't give up, she murmured. You protected your daughter. You survived. You kept going even when everything felt heavy. That's not weakness, Deyvon. That's strength. He swallowed hard. You helped me see that, and you helped me believe in love again. He smiled softly, the kind of smile that only appeared when he felt deeply understood. As the sky deepened into twilight, Moyle rested her head on his shoulder. She flashed back to the grocery store, the noise, the fear, the moment he lunged in front of her, the bullet, the chaos, then the hospital, Sky crying in her arms, her father yelling through the phone, Deyvon whispering her name even when he barely had strength, then the living room confrontation, the boardroom conflict, her father collapsing, Deyvon choosing purpose. Everything had led them here. Funny, she whispered, how the worst moment of our lives led to the best one. His chest rose and fell slowly. Life's got a strange way of teaching us. She laughed softly. That's one way to put it. Sky stirred, stretching dramatically. Are we still married? She mumbled. You weren't married, Deyvon teased. We were. Oh, Sky said, sitting up. Well, I think we did amazing. Moyle kissed her cheek. You did. Sky looked around at the field, the fireflies, the soft glow of the sky. I like this, she whispered. Can we come here a lot, forever? Forever, Deyvon said gently. Forever, Moyle echoed. Sky nodded firmly. Good. Because forever feels nice. As Sky began chasing fireflies near the edge of the field, Deyvon reached into the picnic basket and pulled out something wrapped in a cloth. What's that? Moyle asked. He unwrapped it slowly, revealing a small wooden carving. A home. 3 figures. Standing hand in hand. He had carved it himself. I made this before the wedding, he admitted. I wasn't sure when to give it to you. Moyle ran her fingers along the smooth wood, tears forming quietly. It's beautiful, she whispered. It's us, he said simply. It's family, she corrected gently. He nodded, emotion tightening his throat. I want this to be the first thing in our new home, he said. A reminder of where we started. Moyle held the carving to her chest. It'll be in the front room, she said. where everyone can see it. The fireflies danced around them like tiny floating blessings. Sky laughed as she tried to catch them. Moyle rested her head on Deyvon's shoulder again. Deyvon wrapped his arm around her waist. Peace settled over them. Not dramatic, not cinematic, but real. And real lasts. "Moyle," he whispered, "thank you for choosing us." She looked up at him, eyes soft. "You didn't give me a choice," she teased. "You stole my heart." He laughed quietly. "I'll hold on to it." "You better." He kissed her forehead, then her cheek, then the space near her jaw. She closed her eyes, letting herself melt into the affection she once feared she'd never receive. "You're my home," she whispered. "And you're my tomorrow," he replied. Sky ran back, jumping onto the blanket with dramatic flair. "I caught a firefly." "Let me see," Moyle said. Sky opened her hands gently. The tiny glowing insect flickered softly before floating away. "It didn't want to stay," Sky murmured. "That's okay," Deyvon said. "Some things are most beautiful when you let them be free." Moyle kissed Sky's forehead. "And some things stay because they choose to." Sky curled into her side. "I choose to stay." Moyle's heart stretched, not painfully, but beautifully. Deyvon wrapped his arm around both of them. "Our family," he whispered. "Our forever," Moyle added. "Before we close this story, I want to ask you something. Did this journey touch your heart? Did it remind you of the power of love, healing, and second chances? If it did, please like this video, comment your favorite moment, share this story with someone who might need hope today, and make sure you're subscribed to Mr. Brian Inspires so you never miss another life-changing story.